whoa, 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 yeah, we are in the place to be, yeah, 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 yeah.
join at the beginning. All right. It's great to have a packed room. Ms. Pangarelli just stepped out for just a moment, but she was okay with us getting started. So thank you, everybody, and good evening. It is definitely a beautiful day. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order exactly at 6 o'clock. We're going to start with a moment of silence. We're going to pause, and then may I please have Brody from Vistancia join us and lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We're going to start off with 3.1, address agenda and consider adoption or recommend any changes. Governing board, are there any changes anybody would like to make? Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to number 4, staff recognitions. Ms. Danielle Airy.
Good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the board, Mr. Savoy, and guests that have joined us this evening. Many of you were able to take part in the reception that we had in the lobby prior to coming into the meeting, so we certainly hope that you enjoyed it. For those of you that maybe wandered in and saw the excitement in the lobby, let me share a little bit about why we had that set up this evening. Tonight, we are honoring our teachers who have received a grant from the Peoria Education Foundation. The grants these teachers received from the foundation directly impact the lives of students and further our district's vision. This is the 15th year that the foundation has held an awards reception to honor our teacher grants. We decided to change it up just a little bit this year by bringing it here to a governing board meeting and giving them this well-deserved public recognition so our board could take part of it, and also our community that is joining us and watching it could also join in recognizing these incredible teachers. Before we proceed any further, we have some special guests that have joined us tonight for the recognition. So if you don't mind, President Ceja Martinez, I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce them. They are the Peoria Education Foundation's dedicated board of directors. These individuals are comprised of business owners. We have some former governing board members, retirees, and just mainly those who are passionate about public education. Foundation board members that have joined us tonight, if you would stand so that we can give you a round of applause when you hear me call your name. Our president, Tamara Caraway from Avid Architects. I thought I saw our treasurer, but she may have had to step out. Nadina Fish from Books Done Right. Community leader and former governing board member for the Peoria Unified School District, Kathy Connect. Tom Lagering from Sun City Country Club. CJ Smith, who is principal from Heritage Elementary School. Julie Smock, another community leader and also a former member of the Peoria Unified School District's governing board. Jeff Wooten, principal from Raymond S. Kellis High School. And I know I saw a number of other board members who were here for our reception but did have to leave to get onto another commitment. So we thank them so much for their service and the hours they spend fundraising and supporting the Peoria Education Foundation. I would like to especially thank Tamara Caraway, our foundation's president, and I know she has some words to share with you all. So if you don't mind, I will invite her up to the podium, and I know she has some welcome remarks for you all.
Thank you, Danielle, and thank you, governing board members. You're probably wondering what impact the Peoria Education Foundation is having on the community. The foundation's mission is to support both students and educators within the Peoria Unified School District. To accomplish this mission, the foundation raises funds to provide exemplary and innovative educational experiences that would not be otherwise funded. Since its inception, the Peoria Education Foundation has awarded nearly $2 million to support Peoria Unified students and teachers in the 32 years as a working nonprofit. However, we wouldn't be able to support as many students and teachers if it wasn't for our devoted community sponsors who are so generous with their time and funding. Thank you for being here. Congratulations to our teachers tonight that we are recognizing. So thank you all, and it is truly an honor to serve the Peoria Unified School District. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tamara, for your support. And I should also mention Avid Architects was the sponsor of our reception out here this evening. So we thank them for treating all of our teachers, and for many of you that were able to enjoy that. Thank you for your support. Well, now it's time to honor our recipients. So we'll be recognizing some of the district's most incredible teachers who truly are doing amazing things in their classrooms. These teachers are receiving grants for everything ranging from technology to literacy to music, art, you name it. But they have come up with an innovative idea for their classroom, identified a need, and applied to receive the funding. I should tell you that each one of those applications that come in are vetted through a process and a committee, most of which is comprised of former educators and a number of other community members separate from our district that look at all of those applications and score them in order to identify those that are going to be the best fit to receive this funding. So this year, they awarded a record $45,000 to teachers and schools in the Peoria Unified School District. It's my honor to introduce you all to this year's recipients. So Mrs. Careway, if I could ask you to come forward to present the certificates to them, and we'll have them on the ready for you. To our teachers who are receiving the certificates this evening, if you would come forward when you hear your name called to accept your certificate. We will begin with Erica Grill from Altaloma Elementary with the project Excited About Exploration, a STEM Journey. Is she here with us this evening? Erica, well, we could give her a round of applause. Tanya Neva from Altaloma Elementary with the project Makerspace, fueling 21st century skills with 3D printing. Next up, Carol Michael from Apache Elementary with Wonder Workshop Coding for the Classroom. Next up, Layla Winther, also from Apache Elementary, with her project Rethinking the Traditional Teaching Environment. Next, Melissa Grimsheed from Centennial High School is up with Electrical Circuits with Castle. Is Melissa here with us tonight? Barbara Parrish, also from Centennial High School, with Books Are Best. We have Shelley Mullenbeck and Fabiola Perez from Cotton Bowl Elementary with the grant QR Reading in Literacy Center. Megan Maxwell from Country Meadows Elementary with the project Rolling Spheros into Our Future STEM Careers. And next we'll honor Susie Richardson and Megan Gonzalez from Desert Palms Elementary with the project Ready Bodies Learning Minds Motor Lab. We've got a duo up next of Sonia Violet and Kelly Trebrosky from Desert Valley Elementary, Speech Buddies helping us clean up our articulation act. I was trying to be extra articulate on that one. We also have Colin Apthorpe from Liberty High School with the project Increasing STEM Participation and Outreach. Sarah Geller from Marshall Ranch Elementary with the project Library Expansion. Lori Riley from Paseo Verde Elementary with the project Sensory Motor Lab. Wendy Biddle from Skyview Elementary with the project Hop, Skip, and Jump. Rob Price, also from Skyview with the project Nothing But Net. And last but not least, Christina Lobmeyer from Vistancia Elementary with her project Introduction to Robotics for third grade students. And we are so proud of all of the work that you do. We've got another round of grant recipients, and these are specific to arts education. And the funding that these educators receive comes specifically through the Peoria Arts and Cultural Foundation, or excuse me, the Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival. You're going to hear a little bit more about that in just a minute, so I'm not going to dip my toe in the water with that one too far, because we've got an exciting update for you on that. But I really do want to recognize these teachers and mention, if you attended the Arts Festival, you likely saw a number of them out there. We'll begin with Patricia Santangelo from Cactus High School with the project Lighting the Path of Cactus's Innovation and Excellence. Next is Kate Manasco from Centennial High School with her project String Resurrection. And a future teacher by her side. Next, we have Liz Ford from Oasis and Desert Harbor Elementary Schools with the grant Pianist in Peoria. Next, we have Ashley David Watkins from Raymond S. Kellis High School with the project Marley Dance Floor. And last but certainly not least, Allison Griesel from Vistancia Elementary School with the project Innovation within the General Music and Choir Room. Did I miss any of our arts educators? Very good. Well, another congratulations to these very fine teachers. They're so well-deserving. And I would invite anyone in our community that wants to hear more about their projects and programs to reach out. We'd love to take you in to see their classrooms, give you some tours of them. And I think what we're going to do, because we have such a large group, is we're likely going to do a group photo right at the conclusion of our recognitions just outside. So that way we can kind of get you properly organized and prepped, if that's okay with you. So we'll do that. To the families that have joined us in the room that support all of these teachers, the long hours that they work, thank you. It certainly doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you for all that you do to help support the educators in our district. Well, thank you for allowing me to go through and recognize them, President Ceja Martinez. I do have a couple more recognitions, but if you don't mind, I'll pause in case the board has any comments that they would like to share, either for the foundation or for any of our arts educators.
Thank you very much, Ms. Airy. We'd be more than happy to take the time to do so at this moment. First, I have received letters from constituents in regards to the Peoria Education Foundation, and I do want to highlight that it is a completely separate organization of volunteers and dedicated staff. So thank you that you do that and lead that charge so that we can support and add value to all the students and lives you touch. So thank you for that. Ms. Pangarelli, I'll start off with you.
Oh, I just wanted to apologize for not being able to get here at 5 o'clock. I couldn't leave work until 5:30. But I just wanted to say congratulations to all of you, and it's phenomenal. That was $45,000 just for this year. That's amazing. So congratulations.
Ms. Underhill.
Yes, I just want to also thank the volunteers and for all that you guys do and all the events and everything. But I also want to thank the teachers for taking the time to apply, because I know with all the other stuff you have going on, it is something extra. And the project is going to be extra too, but we really appreciate what you're doing just to make, education continue to be engaging for our kids. So thank you very much.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, no, agreed. Thank you very much, the Education Foundation, for what you do every day to go the extra mile to, really enhance the resources for PUSD and allowing us to, really enhance the classroom, right, and the student experience through innovation grants and scholarships for our students. But when I look around this room and I see all the smiling faces, and I always say this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, it is an honor to serve each and every one of you. What you do every day, your tireless commitment for our students, our district, is just inspiring. And you touch their hearts, you inspire hope in our kids, and then, like Ms. Underhill stated, the extra mile that you go through to understand what's out there, from opportunities to integrate other programs into your sites, and going through the process. It's just, again, inspiring. So thank you very much.
Ms. Stone?
Well, I would like to also apologize for not being able to make it at 5, but I want to congratulate all of you and thank you so much for the time and effort that you put in for your students and our students, and for the work that you give to our community. I want to thank you for the attention that I know the kids really, it takes that extra little bit to get them really going sometimes, and I thank you all for doing that. And I just want to thank you for being people that get involved. Thank you so much.
And Ms. Airy, thank you for bringing this to the board, because this is something new that we love the opportunity to see all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. And I should mention as well, thank you for pointing out that the foundation is separate from the district. It is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and all contributions to the foundation are tax deductible. So thank you for pointing that out. And also wanted to recognize that Mr. Sandoval serves as an ex officio member of the foundation, a non-voting member, but he does stay engaged on behalf of the board and district. So thank you for doing that, Mr. Sandoval. Well, also, speaking of the Education Foundation, I did allude just a little bit to the Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival. It's difficult to put into words the impact that that event has on our community and the ripple effect that it has across our district. Those of you that were there and were able to experience it, I'm sure you know what I'm speaking about. But for those of you that couldn't attend, we have compiled a video highlighting the day. So if I could just direct your attention to the screen so we can share a few of the highlights from this year's Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival. Well, that was Mr. Colley that put that together. David Colley, thank you so much for capturing the day so well. I know many of our board members, we missed you because you were all at a conference, but rest assured, we already have a date for next year that we're hopeful will work to have you all out there with us. It's an incredible event, as you can see, and I'm going to invite the Director of Arts Education for our district to share a little bit more about it with you all. As he's making his way up here, I'll tell you, it's just a Herculean effort by so many teachers to put that together. But also from our arts education department. Rob Panzer, Stacy Hamilton, Justina Riley, you are incredible, and that festival is in large part to your many, many hours. So thank you for all that you do to make that happen. And Mr. Panzer, I'm sure, will share a little bit more with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, President Ceja Martinez, members of the board, Mr. Savoy, and our community. It's certainly a pleasure. It's actually interesting for me to watch that because I didn't get to see a lot of that on the day. But it's a wonderful opportunity to be here tonight to share a little bit about our event that happened on March 30th. We're certainly very proud of that event, and I'm here to really share out that it was another successful year for our Arts and Cultural Festival. We had about 14,000 members of our community coming out on that day to support us. We had 85 different performances, about 4,000 pieces of artwork. So if you imagine that, all of our choir, all of our band, all of our theater educators, all of our dance educators brought all of their students out there on that day to be part of that. And I think that really says a lot about the shared commitment that we all have around the impact that the arts have for our children in the Peoria Unified School District, and really says a lot about the way that we support arts education in the Peoria District. So there's certainly so many people to thank for that, but certainly the board's support and our community support play an integral part in a day like that coming together. It really was a great day. The weather was fantastic. I mean, you put 12 food trucks together, you bring 85 different performances out there, you engage the community in activities that enable them to make art and leave with art on that day. And it's really just not only the outstanding attendance, but it's also, as Mrs. Airy pointed out, a wonderful opportunity for the Peoria Education Foundation to bring some fundraising opportunities back for them that go right back into our arts education classrooms. About $15,000 of money went back into our arts education classrooms because of last year's festival. And obviously this year with the increased attendance and some of the increases that brings to the foundation, we're very hopeful for next year and what that's going to bring. One of the things that you saw in the video is we always try to add some new things each year as well. We added a chalk mural zone. You saw the Starry Night mural that was being created by our arts educators as well as our community members who were getting right down there onto the pavement with them and creating that hand in hand. We also moved some of our performances that take place typically in a traditional stage space inside, and we brought it out into the community and right onto the street in some pop-up performances, which was a really incredible thing. You saw an outside dance group come, and that was one of the first times we actually brought an outside professional organization in to work with our educators. They're actually doing some PD with them on Monday, but they were out performing, and then we had some of our theater groups out there in those pop-up performances. But some of the things that really make us proud is how we're really trying to bring an Arts for All approach to this Arts and Cultural Festival. We're excited that we had expanded opportunities for our Liberty and for our Kellis Unified Arts programming to be out. We brought the Arise program from Ironwood High School out with some furniture repurposing and decoration and creation of artwork out of that this year. And that's something that we're very proud to make sure that we're creating a culture within the Peoria School District for Arts for all students. And that's something that we're very proud to have. As you can imagine, an event like this takes a lot to put together. We have a very strong partnership with the City of Peoria and with the Peoria Education Foundation around this event. We continue to expand what we're doing with the City of Peoria and are very grateful for the partnership that we have with them. The use of the facilities, the planning team that they put, the resources they put behind us is, again, going back to that shared belief that we all have in the importance of arts education for our children, and we're very grateful that we can continue to build that partnership with the city. What our goal is to continue to make the Arts and Cultural Festival the premier arts events in the West Valley, and certainly I believe that's the shared belief of the city as well. Believe it or not, as Mrs. Airy said, we are already planning for the 2020 festival. We had our debrief this week. We had our discussions about what went really well and some of the things that we need to look at. But as Mrs. Airy also said, this is not a one person, one-trick event. This is 140 art educators coming together behind a shared purpose and a shared belief in what they do, whether it be managing a stage on that day, whether it be wrangling 60 kids to get all to the same place at the same time to be ready to perform at the same moment, or making the make it take it space, or just even in the instrument petting zoo. It really takes us having a shared and a collective commitment to ensure that we have a successful event. Some of the people that make my life really good is Mrs. Riley, our administrative assistant in the Arts Education Department, who certainly ensures that the problems are solved before they happen, the solutions are there before we even know that we need them, and that all of the pieces are in place and we're all at the right place at the right time. So I have to say a true thank you to Mrs. Riley for all the work that she does for our department. We're also very excited that we have Mrs. Hamilton, who's joined our team this year, who played a very important role in the Arts and Cultural Festival this year and gave us some incredible feedback and a very different perspective coming from a classroom, now working as an instructional coach with our educators across the district. But she was a very integral part in making this day a success, so I have to say thank you to Mrs. Hamilton as well. Mrs. Airy was very subtle with the amount of work that she does with it, as she wouldn't recognize herself, but the public relations department is a huge part from a sponsorship standpoint to an organizational standpoint and making the day possible. So their work behind the scenes is incredible, as well as people like Mrs. Manasco and Mr. Davis, who brought all of the band equipment that we needed for all of the stages out on that day, arriving as early as 6 in the morning with the trucks loaded of equipment. So there's so many people that come together to make an event like this possible. Numerous volunteers from across the district. You might have seen in the video the giant art boards. Well, there's about 130 of those that come from an elementary site to the festival location site and then get set up, displayed, taken down, and then returned to the site, all within a 3-day period. So our district maintenance team, Mr. Deeg, has been very gracious to offer support with that, with his teams, and as well as all of our site maintenance teams have done some incredible work with that as well. So it is truly a village that makes this happen for our district and for our community, and we're very grateful. From a sponsorship standpoint too, we had our title sponsor of Valley Schools, some of our supporting sponsors of Sky Zone, as well as the Musical Instrument Museum. They all play a very, very important role in this. And like I said, we're already looking ahead. So if you have your calendars, and I know that we want to ensure that you are all there next year, we have a date of March 28th, 2020 for the next Arts and Cultural Festival. It's actually an 18th annual Arts and Cultural Festival. We've already been thinking about how can we engage the community even more? How can we expand the opportunities for the pop-up stages? How can we start to bridge that gap between professional artists and student artists to do more with that? So we're already thinking about how we can do that. But truly, as I said earlier, thank you to our district leadership, Mr. Savoy, and so many of our leaders in our district, and especially our governing board, for the support that you give to arts education in our district. That commitment and that continued support that you provide for our 36,000 students enables us to really put something like this together, and we're very grateful for that. We know it's going to be another outstanding year. We know it's going to be a great festival next year, and we know it's going to be something that our students and our community and our educators are going to be proud of, and really that is because of what we all do together. So I thank you very much, and I certainly stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and start with Mr. Sandoval. Lead us off.
All right. Wow, a lot. A lot goes into planning, this magnitude of event. But I'll say this, just what a great display of collaboration amongst individuals whose impact on our youth is never ending. Again, the educators, within our district, Ms. Hamilton, Riley, and team, Mr. Panzer. It's just, again, what you do beyond, the workday, and that commitment to our district is just, it's powerful and it's unparalleled. So thank you very much. I agree with you. I think it's a great, from a revenue regard, it's a great channel. But what a great way to display Peoria's, pride, right? Our students and all the great things that go on in our district to the community. And that collaboration for me, in addition to the city, is invaluable. I mean, it's just something that we talk about all the time. How do we engage our community into the district and all the great things that we do, and bringing it to them is just powerful. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Ms. Stone?
Well, I would like to say it looked really easy. And I think that's the hallmark of very, very hard work. You fool people into thinking that, it was really easy and smooth and all that. I want to congratulate everyone involved in doing that. I know it was a lot of hard work, and I know it was a lot of hard work on your own time. And from what I saw, it looked like a whole lot of people had fun. So that's a really good, PR too, as well as just showing what Peoria's, our district is all about. I like to think that the art that our young people do shows, where their hearts are, and some of the things that are coming out and able to find expression in art, whatever form it is. I think it's really good and healthy for our young people, and sharing it with the communities is good because they can see where the kids are. Just thanks a lot to everybody for your hard work, and to our young people who did also the hard work to be involved in that. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Ms. Underhill?
Yes, I just want to say ditto to, to all those things. It's such a neat tradition. I'm so sad that we weren't there, so thanks for figuring that date out. But it's such a neat tradition, and it's a cool tradition in that it's not just a tradition, but also you bring so much innovation to it. And it's neat to see that kind of evolve each year as you go forward. Can't say enough about the collaboration with the city and what a great thing that is for our community, and just really, like Ms. Stone said, just bringing the arts to the kids, because we know how important that is to their development. And I think the coolest picture is like the little kid standing there pointing to his artwork, right? Because what a confidence builder that is, that, he can see himself out there expressing himself, and other people are there to congratulate him on that. So thank you for another amazing job well done.
Thank you. It's a wonderful event, and taking that back, with the partnership with the city, there are wonderful things happening. And I've been with the district for over 25, or for close to 25 years, and we've seen this event evolve from a very small event to what I believe is the premier arts event in the West Valley, and we hope to continue that and grow that and make that into an even bigger celebration in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Pingarelli?
Well, I just want to say congratulations and thank you very much for all your hard work, everybody that was involved. I have the date, so again, it's March 28th next year.
March 28th, 2020.
I got it. I wrote it down. Thank you very
Wonderful.
much. And I just want to say I'm so impressed with the talent that we have in this district, and that's a reflection of the art teachers that the students have. So I just want to say thank you to everybody.
Thank you. We have incredible art educators. Mr. Rieger is over here. You saw some of his ceramics work. We have educators who every day are giving everything they have to our students and building that learning in the classroom, but also building those skills of expression, those creative problem-solving skills, the things that our students are going to need in that 21st century to achieve what they need to achieve. We believe a lot of that comes from what's happening in our arts classrooms.
Thank you, Ms. Pingarelli, and again, thank you for highlighting that. That's exactly where I was headed. I'm constantly reminded, the board's reminded, we're all here, reminded that we're all about student success and what we can do to help support our future. And everything that my board has described and what you have elaborated on, from engagement to self-confidence. When I go into an interview process and I look at candidates, I look at, can they problem solve? Do they have the creativity to work through the unknown? And we just came from a school board conference that said the top indicators of hiring our future are problem solving, decision making. And today is a great day because we're going to start talking about student success, and the arts integration program that we have in Peoria Unified is second to none. So thank you so much, and the community, teachers, staff, parents, for doing what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. It's everyone coming together behind our students is going to make us a success, so thank you all as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Ceja Martinez. If I could, one more quick verbal recognition for you, because I happen to see that we have the Cactus Cobras in the house. I saw Ms. Hammer sitting over there, and I believe there's a pretty big recognition coming out of her school. The Cactus Commanders, which is Cactus's robotics team, won first place in the Arizona West Regionals competition. This qualifies the team for the first Robotics World Championship in Houston, Texas. So a pretty big deal. So in addition to coming in first place, they received the Engineering Inspiration Award, which is one of the most prestigious awards that is given at the competition. So a big round of applause for the Cactus Cobras.
Thank you. I'm just saying my son's going to Cactus next year. Thank you very much again for everybody. Now, Miss Ari, just real quick, did you want to take the picture outside? Perfect. So this is the opportunity where we love to capture this beautiful moment. What a happiness advantage is a book I'm reading is appropriate here. So please let us give the opportunity to capture that moment and follow Miss Ari to take a picture. Thank you again for joining us, and if you're online, you get to see all the wonderful accolades going on. Generally, after recognitions, if you wanted to stay, you can come back and join us and watch the wonderful discussion, or you can go eat ice cream or have dinner and celebrate. That's generally how it goes. We are moving forward to 4.2, board recognitions. Board, I just wanted to take a moment. If you notice, we did change just a small piece of it. It says board recognitions and reports. Learning through the National School Board Conference that we just attended, this gives the opportunity for the board to recognize anything that you've experienced, seen, received in an email, accolades. But in addition is the board reports. Often the board is receiving emails from our constituents, from staff, parents, even students. This will give the opportunity for the board to speak to it, but we cannot have conversation as it's not an agendized item. So you could, for example, if we received an email about transportation, you could say, if the board wants to further this discussion, please bring it up in a future agenda item. Or National School Board Conference, here are the items that I would like the board to consider in the future, or speak to the national board's situation. But that is something new that's been added. We just cannot have dialogue as a result of open meeting law. Okay? So, with that explanation, Ms. Pingarelli, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I would like to actually thank Representative Tony Rivero. He had contacted me a while ago in regards, kind of after our bond had failed, in trying to get our House members, our senators, together with PUSD. So him and I had planned a meeting at the Capitol. It was this past Tuesday. And I just wanted to thank people that were there. From District 21 would be Tony Rivero, Representative Payne, and Senator Gray. From 20, Representative Kern and Representative Bullock. And from 22, Representative Carroll and Representative Toma. And also from PUSD, I wanted to thank Mr. Savoy for filling in for our superintendent, being there. Also for Michelle Myers, our CFO. She actually was the one that fielded most of the questions and comments. So I really appreciate you being there that day. Also, Mrs. Ceja Martinez. This is actually hopefully the first meeting of many to try to get everybody together. Next meeting, I would love to have hopefully the other two senators that couldn't be there and the entire board. And we'll work together with Ms. Aries to, if we come up with a date that she can announce that we are all going to be in one area. So board members can only have two people at one place at one time unless it's noticed. So I just wanted to thank everybody, and I look forward to more meetings.
Thank you. Ms. Underhill.
I just wanted to say thank you to our community. We were able to go to the National School Board Conference I guess that was last week already. And it was a really, really good opportunity, especially as a new board member, there was such a wealth of information and be able to interact with, I think there was like 7,000 board members there from across the country. So it was a really, really good experience for me, and I appreciate that opportunity. And also I feel like we came back with thinking about how our district is working to really be a professional learning community and how we as a board need to do the same thing. So one thing that we developed as a kind of a result, and we're just getting going, and thanks to Michelle for doing that from a technology standpoint, is just kind of a SharePoint site for our governance, sort of what we call our governance professional leadership council, or not council, but professional learning community. So we want to learn with you. So I guess I just wanted to say thank you for sending us to that, and just share with you that we are with you and we want to continue to learn as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval.
Yeah, thank you. And just to kind of piggyback on what Ms. Underhill stated, the conference is a grand opportunity for us to further develop professionally, build on our acumen as it relates to sitting in this seat, ensuring that, what we do every day on your behalf is impactful and certainly holistic and comes from a global space. So I too want to thank the community, certainly for their support and having this one of our opportunities again to grow as individuals. In addition to that, when I visit sites or the district office, it is clear that each and every one of you wear many hats and do it well, and do it in a way that with a calming demeanor, because of your understanding of why we're here, which is for our students and their success. So it is, like I said before, it is an honor, but I want to thank each and every one of you, the entire district. It's an honor to serve individuals who are willing to roll up their sleeves to certainly get in the trenches and do whatever it takes to make sure that we're successful. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval. Ms. Stone.
I don't have any recognitions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a couple, just to highlight the National School Board Conference for my fellow governing board members. There were materials that were provided for us, as Ms. Underhill stated, that we can upload it onto the board doc so that we could share it, and we'll go ahead and share those PowerPoints. Two big takeaways that I took for us as a board is board docs. There are so many more things we can do with it. And I would like us to consider in the future that we revisit training so it helps communicate our strategic plan, our goals, our progress with the community. The other piece of that was community engagement. There's definitely a delineation between public relations and the board's role in engaging your community, and we definitely have an opportunity to do more in that space. Thank you, Cactus High School, for hosting the PTSO dinner. We had our SRO officer talk about vaping, and I need to highlight that because it is so important that we have the conversation with our children. It needs to begin as early as 4th, 5th, 6th grade. They go to the parks and they see it. So please continue to have that dialogue, and Sunrise Mountain does have a link to talk about vaping. We did receive emails from our constituents about variances from North Peoria, kindergarten Vistancia. The board also received to take a look at our school psychologists. as well as transportation. So thank you again, community, for staying engaged, and we continue to look forward to serving you. Thank you, Mr. Sandoval, for highlighting that. Okay, at this point, I don't see any more requests from the board to recognize. We're going to move forward with public comment. We do have one. It is in relation to the transportation email. Ms. Lauren Perez, she is going to address the board and any community members who would like to talk about any items not on the agenda. You would fill out a green sheet. There are 3 minutes that Ms. Abushan will post. And so you would just join us at the podium and go ahead and speak for 3 minutes. So, okay. Then you go. Start.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'd just like to say that pertaining to my email, I'd like to ask that before you consider bond funds for transportation, that our neighborhood would like you to consider the boundaries within our neighborhood and the bus routes that go through our neighborhood. I have with me tonight my neighbors. I have Kathleen Severson, Heather King, Tamara Murdoch, Linda Fairbanks, and Christina White. We're a community that is small. We know each other. We know our families. We raise our kids in a village. Our neighborhood is called the Weedville neighborhood. If any of you ever get that on your Facebook posts, that's us. We have been part of the neighborhood now for many years, but the boundary in our neighborhood is such that it's divided at 71st Avenue. The kids that live west of 71st Avenue attend Peoria Unified School District, Paseo Verde, and when they transition into high school, they are to attend Cactus, but most of their friends, 95% of them, go to Centennial High School. So we're in the position to apply for a variance for our kids to go to Centennial High School. It's kind of one of those things that you argue with your kid about, you know, and we know that all the schools in Peoria Unified School District are good. It's just a matter of where their friends are, where their village is, and that's what it's come down to for us. So we applied for variances. Right now, we have approximately 27 kids. I think 15 of them have either graduated or gone to Centennial High School, and the 13 more are up and coming. So we'd ask that you visit those boundaries for us going forward so that our younger kids may have the opportunity to take the bus to school. Right now, the Cactus High School bus comes down our street twice a day, every day, and it picks up 0 kids in our neighborhood. We watch it every day. So I don't think it would be any additional cost to the school district itself. It would just be, you know, rerouting a bus. And I know I say that like it's just rerouting a bus. There's many other things that need to be addressed. You know, we need to talk to the city about it. We need, you know, the principals, the school board, everybody. I think this is just the beginning of it. We all kind of feel like this is very important to us. We support Centennial High School. Most of us volunteer there. Our kids play sports. They're in the band. They're in the choir. We know people. Centennial has become our home. So this is the beginning of us, and we'll probably see you at a lot more school board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Next, we have Tamara Murdoch.
That was very close. It's actually Tamara Murdoch.
Thank you very much for the correction.
You're welcome. I have also, too, would like to request that you reconsider the boundaries for our neighborhood. Our kids all, grow up together. They go to Paseo Verde, and all of their friends then transfer to Centennial, as this is a feeder school. Historically, I stand in front of you. I was actually one of the first students to ever attend Paseo Verde when it opened their doors. Now, here I am in my 30s, came back home with my kids, and kind of going through that experience and living that with them. And it would just make life a whole lot easier if we could just have not just one kid get on a bus to go to Paseo Verde and another kid that I have to drive to and from to school. It would be great to be able to send them both off, knowing that they're going to be safe with transportation. Without the transportation, when it comes to days like early releases or testing days where they don't start until 10:40, as working parents, it's extremely difficult to be able to plan transportation for them in those events. So again, I would like for you all to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not see any more green slips in regards to other agenda items, correct? Or for 5.1, correct? Okay. Thank you, and because it's not an item on the agenda, we cannot speak to it, but at the end of this board meeting, there is an opportunity for the board, if they choose to put it on a future agenda item, so thank you for bringing that to our attention. Moving on to consent agenda, governing board members, number 6. Does anybody want to pull any items? I do have one to pull, which is the draft resolution, financial literacy resolution. Anybody else? Okay. The consent agenda items are in good order. I move to approve the consent agenda excluding 6.6. Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda excluding 6.6. Yes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Yes, I got one more, but he's 8.4. Yep, thank you. Excellent. And again, I would like to take a quick moment. If you haven't noticed, our Deputy Superintendent has joined us this evening. Thank you, Mr. Savoy. Please feel free to jump in. It's like jump rope sometimes. That we can join our conversation. Thank you again, community, students, staff, for having the opportunity and governing board to review a financial literacy resolution. I rewatched the board meeting as well, listening to your comments, and what was posted in the consent agenda item was the rough draft of a financial literacy resolution. What has been put in front of you is a finalized request that includes amendments for grammar, meeting your request, Ms. Underhill, of identifying student loans. Ms. Pangarelli, you requested to quote statistics. And Mr. Sandoval, you did ask, why resolution on financial literacy. I took the opportunity while I was at the school board conference to poll other governing board members and why they host or why they propose resolutions, and the bottom line is why not, specifically with financial literacy. It is a need as a governing board to educate our community on finances. It is a need for our students and staff to understand the importance of financial literacy. Hopefully with all your statements, requests, students' input, community members, organizations, that we've captured a financial literacy resolution that will communicate to everybody the importance.
So, thank you for that. And just to be clear, I wasn't questioning if a financial resolution or financial literacy resolution, it was more on the impact of a resolution. I think it's, we look at that last board meeting, I'm absolutely in agreement on the subject. But anyway, just wanted to make sure that I was understood.
Thank you very much. And I just want to make sure that your voices are, we talk about inclusion and that your voices are captured. So thank you for that clarity. Any other comments by the governing board? Okay. So I move to approve the financial literacy resolution that has been presented with the amendments. We have a motion and a second by Mr. Sandoval. Would you like to proceed with a voice vote? All right, here we go. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and your voice. Moving on to going through my packet. Thank you for your patience. Agenda item 8.1, consideration of recommendation for the administrative appointments for elementary principals for 2019-2020 school year. Dr. Davidson, that's a tongue twister.
That is a long one. Good evening. I'm President Seha Martinez and members of the board. Mr. Savoy, I was going to say Mr. Sandoval because I was looking at you, and members of our community. Obviously, tonight it's a very exciting night and one of great opportunity for some members in our audience, President Seha Martinez. So if it's okay, I'd simply ask if we can move forward with the motion, and then depending upon the vote, bring our candidates forward as I could.
Thank you very much, Dr. Davidson. So I do need a motion.
I move that we approve administration's recommendation for administrative appointments for elementary principals for the 2019-2020 academic year.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Sandoval, a second by Ms. Underhill. Is there any conversation, governing board? Okay, none at this time. Please cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Thank you, and we appreciate your support. I wanted to highlight before we get into the candidates that are here tonight, this was a very rigorous process for our individuals that went through it. We were, as you saw in some of the background information, we were able to take a large group of applicants and really highlight 3 top candidates tonight for selected schools. In our audience, I know I look around and see some members of the interview committee, so I just wanted to, you don't have to stand up, and we don't want to put you on blast by any means, but we thank you for being here tonight and certainly for supporting that process. President Seha Martinez, you mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to highlight from the candidates you'll meet tonight. Problem solving and good decision making certainly played into the reason why they were chosen. The individuals tonight that we're going to recognize have a large body of work that really supports both of those qualities, so I just wanted to highlight that, okay? With that being said, again, thank you for all of you who are participating. I'd like to start off by recognizing our future principal of Coyote Hills Elementary School. And tonight it is a great pleasure to recognize Mrs. Julie Abbott, that she be appointed principal of Coyote Hills Elementary School for the 1920 school year. Mrs. Abbott currently serves as the assistant principal at Coyote Hills Elementary and has been there in that role since 2015. She has also served as a teacher within the Peoria Unified School District at Coyote Hills Elementary School from August 2004 to June of 15. Ms. Abbott has had children in our schools, and many of her family members either have or currently work in our school district. Mrs. Abbott has earned a bachelor's degree from Arizona State University and a master's degree from GCU in educational administration. So, Mrs. Abbott, would you please come to the microphone? Congratulations.
President Seha Martinez, members of the board, and Mr. Savoy, it is definitely my privilege and honor to be the next principal at Coyote Hills Elementary. Since Coyote Hills opened, we've only had 3 administrators, Mr. Val Barrett opening the school and Mrs. Candy Deal, and then currently Mr. Terry Ballier. So certainly they have started a tradition of success, and being only the 4th principal being appointed, I understand the opportunity that I have to continue that success. So again, thank you. I am certainly privileged and honored to be an administrator in the Peoria Unified School District. So thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of Mrs. Abbott, I know that, again, we always talk about the level of support that is needed to be successful in your role, and she is here tonight with her husband, Kit, so we want to thank you for your support of your wife there. So, very good. Next, we will recognize the future principal of Copperwood Elementary School, and that is Mrs. Christina Arias. Christina currently serves as the assistant principal at Santa Fe Elementary School and has done that since July of 2017. Prior to accepting the position at Santa Fe, she was an assistant principal at Canyon Elementary School for 3 years. Mrs. Arias has served as special education instructional assistant at Pioneer and Saguaro Ranch, and in 2004, she was hired as a special education resource teacher here in Peoria. Mrs. Arias has a bachelor's degree from Arizona State University in elementary ed and a master's degree from NAU in ed leadership. So, Christina, please come on up.
Good evening, Governing Board President, Mrs. Sejas Martinez, Governing Board members, and Mr. Savoy. It brings me great pleasure as well to stand before you, and I am a little short, not wearing my heels tonight, so wanted to make sure I walked up here appropriately. As I take over Copperwood, it's kind of like coming back home. I taught at Copperwood years ago, and not only do I have my family here with me, with a lot of support and love, but I also have some old and new Copperwood friends. And it's a pleasure to have them by my side, knowing that we have so far up to go together, and I cannot wait to start the journey next year. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
I believe Christina has a very large support system here, and if simply we would just turn to the left, I think it's everybody on this left side. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Last but not least, we'd like to recognize the next principal of Zuni Hills Elementary School, and that will be Miss Krista Lynch. Ms. Lynch is currently serving as assistant principal at Desert Palms Elementary School, and she has been serving there since 2017. Mrs. Lynch has served in several roles within Peoria Unified: assistant principal. She has served as a high school ELA and math teacher, an instructional specialist, a reading specialist, first grade teacher, and a gifted cluster coach, all since 1993. Ms. Lynch has a bachelor's degree from Grand Canyon University in secondary ed, English, and a master's degree from Northern Arizona University with an emphasis in counseling and human relations, along with the appropriate coursework in school administration. So, Mrs. Lynch, thank you for your service, and come on up.
President Seja Martinez, Governing Board, Mr. Savoy, and community members, it's really my joy and privilege to serve in this district for 26 years now in multiple capacities. And today it was just such a joy to visit Zuni Hills Elementary School and get to see the staff that I will soon be able to join that family and lead that group of people. I actually worked there for 1 year as a reading specialist, so I was able to see many of the staff members from about 8 years ago that I recognized, and I will get to join them once again. And so I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I'm very thankful for it. And I'm looking forward to starting this new journey. So thank you.
And as we end this particular agenda item, President Seja Martinez, I know that Ms. Lynch has brought today with her, I think her 2 children were here, but I think they must have stepped out. Her husband, John, and her mom, Carolyn, are here by her side. So thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you. I do want to highlight your families. When we're in the education environment, it takes more than just yourself. You probably can't count how many hours you've spent at campuses or volunteering over the weekend. And your daughter sharing you, Miss Aries, and we went to Country Meadows together. So I know you are strong women, and your family support system is just as strong and phenomenal. So thank you to all of you. I definitely want to highlight that. I did speak to Mr. Savoy. He talked about the process that you guys went to, and we have continued to evolve, and the inclusive of getting community involvement and engagement was definitely part of that conversation when I talked to Mr. Savoy. So it's impressive to see that we are continuing to include their voices in that decision-making process, and you have your parents' support. So congratulations, and please let us know how we can be of service. Any governing board members like to add any more additional comments?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And again, at this time, if you would like to exit and go enjoy dinner and celebrate, or you can join us in a conversation. Wow, that was a ton of accolades. We filled our bucket tonight. I love it. Okay, we're going to get ready for 8.2, Curriculum and Instruction New Course Proposals. And we have Ms. Marla Woosley, Marla Homs, Executive Director, Curriculum and Professional Development.
Good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the Governing Board, Mr. Savoy. Tonight, we are excited to come before you to ask that you approve new courses for our high school students for this upcoming school year. The courses before you this evening are providing our high school students the opportunity to expand their knowledge and increase their rigorous coursework in order to prepare for college and beyond. Tonight, we have courses for approval from the Med Academy, our IB program at Ironwood, as well as Cactus High School. We have an amazing team of people here before you this evening, consisting of Mrs. Barbara Coakley, Director of MET, Mrs. Chris Krushka, IB Coordinator for Ironwood High School, and also Cactus High School Principal, Mrs. Christy Hammer. Our team stands ready to answer any questions that you may have this evening.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and start with Mr. Sandoval.
Yeah, as I read through this list, a couple things that I took from it is how each looks like, I don't want to say each course, but the majority of the courses, integrated some level of the kind of the social soft skills into them, which is fantastic, right? Ms. Martinez mentioned, when we get into the 21st century workforce and really just hiring, academics and education, important without question. But it's, the values-based hiring, that, our students will become, adept in, from a critical thinking regard, collaboration, teamwork, et cetera. So, but then I also want to, as you went through the process, understanding, part of our role is to prepare our students for the future and for that 21st century workforce. So when I take a look at these subjects, and the demand out in the marketplace, we're doing just that. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Ms. Stone?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you very much.
Ms. Pingarelli?
Yeah, I wanted to focus on the Met Bioscience programs. I want to know how many students do you anticipate in these classrooms?
Mrs. Coakley is probably the best one to answer that.
Thank you.
I'll ask her to come on up.
Good evening. We are pre-registering students for this course for next year, and we're going to split one of our medical teachers to offer it in the morning. So we have over 20 kids currently that are interested in it. Just for our morning session at this time, and then we hope to expand that in the future.
Okay. And the funding for it?
So as I mentioned, the teacher is going to be split between medical and bioscience, and we have a lot of the equipment already for the medical program, as well as some donations that we've had. So we feel like we're ready to go right off the bat with what we need to offer this course in 2019-20.
Okay. And then I know that there is a biotechnology program or course that Mr. Kallenbach teaches. And how do we know that we're not going to be cannibalizing our own and taking away from one, because this is all on the same campus, and moving them to the Met?
So we serve all 7 high schools, and with the high demand for need in this area, with the manipulation of DNA in things like medical research, forensics, and all the different areas, there's a high demand for talent in this area. So we want to offer this to all students within the Peoria Unified School District. So we serve all 7 high schools,
Okay.
As we do in our other programs. And as we're looking at the pre-registration, we are getting students from all 7 of those high schools.
Okay. Well, then, so that we don't take students away from the biotech that is at Peoria High School now, can we offer, or I would suggest offering the biotech program as a prerequisite that's already there, before they go on to the MET program. That way I know that his program is secure, and either that or a chemistry as a prerequisite.
So we've been working with ASU New College as well as GCC on what requirements students should have, and also the curriculum and how it should function. And the way that we're offering this bioscience innovation and research is actually quite different than the CTE-based agricultural focus for biosciences. So for it to be a prerequisite, then all the students would have to go to Peoria agriculture first, because they're the only ones who have that. I don't know that that's feasible for and really is a completely different kind of pathway based on what the curriculum that we've set with ASU and GCC.
And then also on most of these courses, or all of them, you say that there's community, I guess, are the students going off-site to take these courses? You have, they're pairing up with community, I'm trying to look, they're in a professional setting. It sounds like are you pairing them up with TGen? Are you pairing them up with other?
Yeah, so TGen has been part of our advisory board since the inception of the MET. We also work with Cancer Treatment Centers of America. We work with Pinnacle Transplant Technologies, and with ASU New College. With the research part of this, they are going to pair their students with our students to conduct the research end of it. So we're going to start with the laboratory skills and then move on to the research side of it. And we're working with our business partners as well as ASU New College in order to achieve that.
Okay. All right. Well, for me, I mean, these sound great, but I do not, since both the ag science and you are on the same campus. I've asked before to understand the difference between the MET, CTE, Ag Science, and also the new program at Cactus High School that they're looking into, that we're not duplicating. Our resources are very sparse, and they need to be used efficiently. And I don't want to have duplicates on various campuses, and especially at Peoria. Now, there are 2 programs on the same campus.
They're similar in name, but I'd love to sit down and kind of go through how our course is structured and how we're trying to prepare students for college based on college level courses and those soft skills. And currently, if we look at the breakdown of students that are coming to the MET, Centennial provides 17%, Cactus 5%, Ironwood 26%, Liberty High School 19%, Peoria High School only 6%, RSK 6%, and Sunrise Mountain 21%. So biosciences in any form has not been offered at RSK or Ironwood ever, and it's not being offered at Liberty High School next year. So we want to make sure we give all students the opportunity within our district to be able to take courses like this, and that's what we're able to do at the MET. We have one qualified teacher with one set of equipment that students from all campuses come to take this course and benefit from it and get prepared for college and a high-demand career.
Well, being in biotech for a number of years and working in hospital settings, I am so for these types of programs. Don't get me wrong. I just wanted to see what type of overlap there is. I would be comfortable in if the MET is not taking existing students away from already teachers that are teaching the biotech or biosciences at Peoria. So.
Yes, I don't, honestly, I'd have to double check, but I don't think any of the students have pre-registered for this course are from Peoria High School.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Underhill?
I think they sound fantastic. I wish I could go back to high school,
Me too.
Yeah. I think the entrepreneurial pathway sounds really excellent. I was just kind of curious, would that be open to other industry, other areas? Like if students were not necessarily in technology or medical, would entrepreneurship, just speak to me a little bit about how open is that, you know?
Yeah, so a couple of things with the entrepreneurship strand that we have modeled this off of GCC courses as well as our universities are being recognized in the entrepreneurial area all the time. So we're partnering with ASU, ENI, and GCU, and U of A. And with that, we are coupling it with graphic design, which we also don't have in our school district because nowadays when you are in a startup or a small business, you have to be able to do the artistic side of things as well. So that's how we're proposing the course, and we work with companies like SeedSpot and Cahoots and local entrepreneur incubators in the area. Phoenix is ranked number 8 for startup community, so it's very friendly community for entrepreneurship. Throughout all of our strands, however, even though this is going to be a heavy entrepreneurship focus in this strand, we do infuse an entrepreneurial mindset because that's what we're hearing from all of our, from all of our business partners, regardless of industry, that growth mindset, that innovation, critical thinking, problem solving, entrepreneurial skills. So we do overlay some of the curriculum in every single strand that we have at the Met.
Great. Just one other question. So I'm thinking about electives for kids that aren't like freshman, sophomore. Do you see eventually that this could potentially become kind of an intro type, could there be an entrepreneurial and, intro type course like we have marketing and business and that kind of thing, just to kind of get those kids interested in that pathway potentially?
So yeah, I used to teach business foundations and marketing for many years, and so when we thought about offering the entrepreneurship course, I reached out to all the CTE teachers who teach that and said, if you have students that are really gung-ho with this and you see them moving forward with it, we'd love to host them. We think junior, senior year is when they're ready and mature to kind of move into that entrepreneurial role. So, and also with DECA and FBLA, with the homeschools, they have entrepreneurial competitions. So we think that this will enhance some of the work that they can do within the CTSOs at their homeschools in DECA and FBLA. So we want to be supportive of some of the business programs that we already have out there today.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. This particular item does highlight what we're going to continue to talk about tonight, which is student success and how many more opportunities that we can offer. So you can definitely tell and share that we're headed on the right direction to offer more and choices. When I take a look from my lens and my experience, a couple of things come up. For me, I noticed what grade levels are all these courses offered to, and is there an application process?
Yes, so we accept juniors and seniors. Occasionally, we'll accept a sophomore with a strong recommendation from counselor and some of if they've taken some other courses and shown, but very rarely. It's mostly juniors and seniors, and there is an application process that we go through every year through in the fall, and we continue to accept some applications for some of the programs that are not currently full.
So in the process, who's part of that committee that reviews that application?
Myself and our student advisor, Ms. Wimet.
I would encourage you to incorporate an inclusive committee. When you're looking at these type of programs, we want to make sure that we have all voices represented and listening to your demographics of what schools are represented. I question serving all students is different from accessibility. And some of the forms I've received with my son going into freshman high school, it says that transportation is provided by the parent. If there are students that cannot get to that campus, they do not have access to all these wonderful courses that are going on. So that's the first thing I would question, is creating a committee that is looking at all those pieces, and the district needs to have access. Opportunity, yes, but access for those students who don't have the financial means to get to some of these courses.
Yeah, unfortunately, the paperwork that you received was incorrect. We have been providing buses from all 6 of our high schools, and we hope to continue to do that.
Okay. because I screenshot it, and it says, asterisk, transportation not provided by Peoria Unified School District to another campus. So I just want to make sure that if that is the case, and that those are deterrents for students picking those classes, that we get our documents updated, because I know when I looked at those forms, I knew that it could be challenging.
I'll work with the high schools to make sure that they do have those updated, to make sure that there's no confusion. And we do, throughout the fall, we ask the high schools to allow us to go out and talk with all of the incoming sophomores and juniors, to make sure that they're aware of the opportunities they have within the district. So we hope to continue to do that as well.
Thank you. And then in those efforts, since you have some data, some baseline data, it's great to have our northern campuses coming to Peoria High School and the MET program to have access. As we look at all these other programs and we look at those lower numbers from Peoria High School, from especially when the campus, those classes are offered at home, and Raymond S. Kellis, to dive deep at what is the reason and how can we support those students so that we can elevate them as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I'll continue to work with the principals on those campuses to try and determine what we can do better.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, no, thank you for that, and those questions are great. But I'll say this, I mean, education today has become so much more competitive. So I do want to say, what I do appreciate is being very thoughtful and mindful of that fact, right? The competitiveness of education, and continuing to uphold what we've been very proud of as a district, which is being innovative and very forward-thinking, and certainly putting our students in a position to be successful, right? So really being thoughtful on these programs and integrating curriculum that sets us apart from the competition, while not impeding on student success, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any additional comments by the governing board? Okay, I look forward to a future report with all this information taken forward. I move to approve the recommended curriculum and instruction new course proposal.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Please vote. Okay. Did it post? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, 8.3, update and discussion of Citizens Bond and Override Advisory Committee.
Well, good evening, President Seha Martinez, members of the Governing Board, and Mr. Savoy. This evening, Mr. Croto and I are here to provide an update on the Citizens Advisory Committee work that has been done to date since the committee was reconvened in January of 2019. Discussion topics for tonight's presentation will include reviewing the purpose of the committee, the 2019 committee member roster, and the committee meeting schedule that has been set to date. We will also provide an overview of the committee's agenda items that have been discussed at meetings that have started since February 5th. In addition, we will reference the 2019 election timeline and current and future committee updates. The district's strategic plan is grouped by strategic perspective or the community's lens. The Citizens Advisory Committee meetings and final recommendation to the Governing Board is part of all 4 perspectives of the district's strategic plan. At the January 10th, 2019 Governing Board meeting, the 2018 Citizens Advisory Committee was reconvened to include prior Governing Board appointed committee members and newly appointed members for 2019. The purpose of the committee is to make a recommendation to the Governing Board on the need to call for a bond and/or override election in November of 2019, as well as associated dollar amounts and/or percentages to correspond with the committee's recommendation. The 2019 Citizens Advisory Committee consists of 11 members who are either returning committee members from last year or newly appointed committee members through recommendations from our governing board and superintendent. 6 meetings have occurred to date, with the March 28th meeting being held on March 26th. There are currently 2 remaining meetings that have been scheduled by the committee. Based on the work that is still being completed, it is now likely that a second committee meeting will be added in May to bring forward a recommendation to the governing board on May 30th. The committee meetings to date have had a variety of agenda items and topics for discussion. Areas of focus have included reviewing the purpose of the committee and meeting timelines. In addition, there have been presentations from administration reviewing Public School Finance 101 and the additional funding a district can receive with a voter-approved bond authorization or maintenance and operations override. The district's current 13% maintenance and operations override was reviewed in detail with the committee, including the associated tax rate. An override is approved for 7 years. If it is not renewed by the voters through an election, it phases out in years 6 and 7. The district's current override supports $26 million of annual funding within our budget for staff positions and programs that include all-day kindergarten, assistant principals, athletics and extracurricular activities, band, music and art, nurses, PE teachers, gifted programs, and district-wide staff salaries and benefits. Administration has provided detailed presentations to the committee highlighting various positions and programs that are supported by the 13% override. And in fact, those presentations took place at the second meeting that the committee had, and there was a focus on the work that our assistant principals do, the benefits of athletics and extracurricular activities, arts, education, visual and performing arts, as well as all-day kindergarten. So there was a focus on those 4 areas with the presentations. The committee has also received information regarding the district's, not only in regard to the 13% maintenance and operations override, as well as information on a 15% override that is also permissible under law. The associated budget impact and associated tax rate for each scenario was also discussed. In addition, Peoria Unified's bond and override election history was reviewed for the last 22 years. Data was also shared with the committee related to bond and override amounts and percentages that are currently in place with other public school districts throughout Maricopa County that have been approved by those districts, communities, and voters. The committee has also reviewed the dollar amounts and project categories that were considered and approved in 2018 as a starting point for 2019 bond project discussions with an inflation factor. In addition, a formal presentation was made to the committee by Applied Economics and Administration that included current and future demographic and enrollment data and projections for future growth in the district. Property tax information was also presented by Stiefel Nicholas and Company, the district's bond underwriter, that included up-to-date assessed valuations, tax rates, and associated district bonding capacity. In addition, 2 public affairs election consultants provided information on elections in general, likely voters, and public opinion surveys that can be conducted to gather input from the community to help the committee finalize recommendations on whether or not to call for a bond and/or override election in November of 2019. Each year, there is a published timeline for Maricopa County elections that school districts must follow when they call for an election. The committee has been made aware of the timeline to coordinate with their final recommendation to the governing board to meet the November 2019 election timeframe. The Citizens Advisory Committee meetings are public meetings with a published agenda and meeting minutes in accordance with open meeting law. The committee documents and minutes are available to the community on the district's website. An update on the committee's work has also been provided previously to the governing board in a Friday report. The committee was originally scheduled to make a recommendation to the governing board by May 9th, But at this time, it appears likely that the recommendation will be at the second governing board meeting in May. This concludes the Citizens Advisory Committee Bond and Override update. At this time, Mr. Croto and I are available to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and start with Ms. Stone.
Okay. Does the information provided to the Bond and Override Committee include past Bond and Override studies that have been done?
President Seja Martinez, Mrs. Doan, we did provide information related to prior bond authorizations that had been presented at prior governing board meetings by the district's former CFO. So there has been information related to bond authorizations prior to 2012. The 2012 bond authorization is the district's current bond authorization that is in its final stages and has one final bond sale.
Okay, and looking through this, I think it's really good. I can see that the need for the district, finance instruction and stuff like that, because it's a pain. But is there anything, let's see. I'm not sure if I missed it or if it's not. Is there anything in here to help the committee with the political winds, if you will, and how things are in our community with feelings regarding the bond and override?
President Seja Martinez, Mrs. Doan, if I go back to 4 slides back, you'll see the bullet point that references that we did have 2 consultants provide information and presentations and summarized opportunities that the district and the committee can explore prior to an election being called to do public opinion polling and to conduct a survey to better understand the feelings in the community.
So we're going to do some of that polling?
The Citizens Advisory Committee has directed administration to move forward with that polling to provide them with information they need to make a complete recommendation.
Okay. I got lost in the weeds. But I appreciate your putting this together for us, and I'd like to thank also the committee for the work that they're putting in, and it's a lot of time. It's a lot of hard work, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys spearheading this thing, so thank you very much.
I would like to add, as we continue this conversation, I had an opportunity to observe a committee meeting, and they did ask unanimously for board feedback. What are our priorities individually, so they can go back to the decision-making table and take those into consideration. So as we have this dialogue, they really want to know where we stand. Mr. Sandoval?
Mr. Meyer, Mr. Croto, thank you both, again, for going beyond the workday, along with the committee members and the community. So thank you for that. When we took a look at the historical elections, bond and override, can you talk a little bit about times that we may have gone out for both and what that looked like from a success regard?
President Seja Martinez, Mr. Sandoval, I did bring the sheet. I thought you might ask this question. And so we did provide the Citizens Advisory Committee with information going back to March of 1996 through November 6th of 2018. And with the information that we have, I'm scanning this right now, and I've got Mr. Croto next to me. It looks like I'm not seeing that we had 2. We have not, per this report that we had, but we do have instances where we've not been successful, as we know, and then we've had successes as well. So the committee has that information. And that information is also available on our website. All of the documents related to the Citizens Advisory Committee work agenda minutes is published on the website. So this is available for you to review.
Okay. And with the, adjustment in the timeline, for us to receive a report at the second meeting in May, does that impede at all on the remaining dates that are in the timeline? I mean, are we having to push those back as well?
President Seha Martinez, Mr. Sandoval, May 30th is really as far as we can push it out to be timely. If we go back a few slides, you can see we have a timeline that we've been working with, and once a decision is made, if the decision is to call for an election, then activities start taking place in June and over the summer, working with county elections, and a resolution has to be signed by the governing board, and there are timelines and deadlines that have to be met regarding a voter information pamphlet. So the luxury of time starts diminishing the further along we go, but we do have flexibility. Last year, the recommendation, I believe, was made on May 24th, so it was late May as well.
Gotcha.
That is our drop dead date, Mr. Sandoval.
Got it.
I can't go any further than that last meeting in May.
Okay, perfect. Just last comment, I know we've talked about integrating resident experts in their fields, whether it be, architecture or, consultants in the political realm, facilities, et cetera. And I believe you've continued to do that, but I would highly recommend that we leverage the knowledge of those organizations or individuals, whoever it is that you choose, to allow us to be very thoughtful of considerations that we may not be thinking about. So adding that additional lens, I think, is important when we take a look at our line items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval. Ms. Underhill?
Great. Thank you guys very much for the update, and the information you've been providing on the website is just, it's really nice to be able to access that. So great, thorough information. One question that has come up to me, I noticed like on the M&O what those categories are and what we currently use them for. We call out school nurses and some other categories of teachers, and then there's kind of a general district-wide staff salary one. Is it possible to utilize the override for a counselor and intervention specialist? Does that fall into that somewhere?
President Seha Martinez, Mrs. Underhill, when an override is approved by the community within that voter information pamphlet, there are categories that will be supported by the override. So as we look at renewing an override or possibly going out for an increase, that's something that our committee could certainly explore and discuss.
I just think with, kind of our current crisis and, well, in general with our students and their mental health needs, which they have voiced to us, and just in general with our state, rates for student per counselor, and also with our district's kind of effort to really move into figuring out how can we better provide social emotional learning and what models work. And I know in the past we've had behavior interventionists that were kind of a promising model. So I just feel like if that's a way, if there's some way that we could sort of emphasize that aspect within the discussion, that might be helpful. The other one I was just curious about with the polling. So I know there was polling done previously and analysis of the election and that kind of thing. Will this polling be kind of coming from a different aspect, or are we trying to answer some additional questions, or just generally what will? And I'm not a polling expert by any means, but what are we looking for with this polling?
I don't believe we've previously conducted polling as part of a Citizens Advisory Committee that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yes, so the committee has received information from two consultants, and they've had a lot to consider, and it's their belief based on those recommendations from the consultants that would be helpful information to gather data from our community, a baseline public opinion survey to help direct their decision making.
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't realize that, so thank you.
Ms. A, may I?
Mr.
Real quick,
Sandoval.
briefly. So just to piggyback on the polling question, though, because one of the things that we talked about is, we've gone out for this, bond over the last, couple of years. So we have a ton of information, understanding, voters yes or no, et cetera. So, I think doing the polling is great, but I would also recommend, some of the opportunities or gaps that we may have in our tactic or strategy, that we leverage the polling's ability to maybe bring forth, some of that information.
President Ceja Martinez, Mr. Sandoval, the polling questions are not quite done yet, but it does that. It's actually a 10-minute, they have guaranteed to give us 400 complete surveys. It's a 10-minute survey, crafted in a way that brings a lot of information, as you're talking about, to the committee, based on the community's feelings, their thresholds of tax increases or no tax increases, their temperament and what they support, what they want to see in their schools. That is all built into this comprehensive survey. And we'll bring all that information to the committee in a report that will help them base their findings. So it is an extensive crafted survey that's going to be conducted.
Sorry. I would assume that how that gets distributed, it addresses the cultural dynamics of our district.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's actually goes right along with our voter dynamics, or our voter demographics, I should say. And they follow those demographics pretty well. The company knows what our demographics are, what our turnouts are, and they follow that survey right along with that to be reflective of our entire community.
Thank you. I'm going to ask just one question and then take back, just because it's about the polling and the data. I know that we have extensive research on the voting records. Do you have, I know, and we also hire 4,000 employees. Some of them live within our boundaries, some of them don't. Do we have within the data that's already been provided, what % makes up our parents and staff versus the rest of the community? And if you do have that handy, do you mind sharing that?
Information? I don't know if she has it in her folder, but we'd be glad to share it. It was published from our last meeting, and that does exist.
Thank you, President Ceja Martinez, members of the board. The information we have is voter jurisdiction specific. I don't know if it identified district employees, but we could certainly provide that to you in a Friday report.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Pangarelli.
All right, thank you. I would like to see the board get the information that was shared with the committee on demographics and enrollment from Applied Economics. And then also, what is the name of the company that did the political data?
Two companies presented, primary consultants, Mr. Paul Yulin and then Mr. Paul Benz with High Ground.
Okay.
And High Ground is the company that the committee is going to work with. The district actually did get quotes from 3 vendors, but High Ground had the best pricing and provided a comprehensive overview just at the last meeting on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. All right. And then since the committee, and I see one of my committee people here in the audience, and I know there's at least 2, so I just want to say thank you for all your hard work and time and effort. Since the committee has asked individual board members what they feel, when the recommendation comes back, I would like to see things broken down into categories. I know last time it was transportation, CTE, arts, et cetera. And then I would like to have the board have the most flexibility. I know we're looking at an M&O override and a bond, because the bond has failed for the past 2 times. So when this comes back, I would like the board to have a hard discussion, and the board is going to have to own this. So I would like to have the most flexibility and see everything broken down.
Thank you. And again, it's very obvious that our committee members take this seriously and have spent a lot of time and hours because they keep adding meetings because they want as much data as possible, as this impacts everybody's life, not just our students or families. It impacts everybody. I would share the same thoughts as my fellow governing board members. I was going to ask for, in a Friday report, the reports that were provided to the committee. I would also like to see them in regards to that research that's already been provided. Looking at my information, we've had quite a few years to look at more and more data. When it comes to me, I look at number one is priority of safety. That's non-negotiable. So when we look at our bond measures, the resources need to go to safety for me. We've also had time to look at more of our resources and how they're utilized within our district, including school sites, and we're hearing constituents now bring up transportation. I would like the committee to consider, if there is a line on transportation, what are those funds being spent on transportation? And if it is related to safety, I would like to have that called out and be provided to the board as the breakdown. Utilization of resources. Last year, we took dollars and allocated to each school site, but we've also had district report, the reports of student enrollment. So those conversations is different now than last year to this year. Are we utilizing all our district resources to its maximum capacity? The other, for the override, this to me is non-negotiable. We just received a 2019 Peoria Unified School District Compensation Study Report, and it's disheartening. We are burning our staff from both ends of the WIC, and the compensation from district, from our peers and across the state. We are a top-notch district, but we cannot pay our staff the money that they deserve and that we value. For me, the override is a priority as much as safety. And looking at this compensation report, it tells a story that we need to address. The last thing I want to add is we as a governing board have tough decisions to make, and being as candid as possible what we look for. Thank you. And I encourage the community to continue to bring up your concerns, send emails, what we value, and we'll consider as we go forward and being specific of what's being presented. So, any other questions, comments from the governing board? Okay, thank you very much.
Before we go,
Mr. Crotto.
I'd like to just recognize our 2 committee members, Janet Guino and Dr. Patty Beltram, for their work that they've done. They've spent numerous hours, so we thank you. We have numerous hours left, but we thank them for that.
And we do have a question, actually. So, and then I just thought of something too. So,
I'm sorry.
Ms. Pingarelli has a question.
And I just wanted to clarify, so when you look back from, was it 1996 data, so has the community ever passed an M&O override and a bond on the same election year? Or actually at the same time?
Mrs. Pingarelli, with the report I have here, I am not seeing both being passed in 1 year.
Okay.
Our community, we don't have proof that there's ever been 2.
Right.
But we did provide proof of surrounding communities that have run 2. So we did look at that.
Thank you.
Yes, and
Sorry. Just to clarify, so you're saying we never went out for both at the same time?
with the historical information that we were able to compile, unless something wasn't readily available looking at multiple resources and working with our underwriter who also had historical information. We were not seeing that from what we compiled and shared with the committee. But if I may comment on Mr. Croto's comment, this last election in November of 2018, 77% of school bond and override elections passed in Arizona.
But how about the ones that went out together?
I don't have that readily available. We can certainly provide that to you.
Okay.
We
Thank
have
you.
that for the last
We
cycle.
do.
We'll send that to you, the report.
Yep.
along with that.
And that was provided to the committee. They have a comprehensive list of all overrides as well as bond authorizations.
Thank you.
Thank you, and you did take the time to highlight our committee members and their time. I do have a question. I know, and I recognize you don't represent the voices of all the committee members, but if you have an ask of the board, what would it be?
They would have to,
So you would have to come to the,
they would have to fill out
they would, you would have to fill out a form, but I do have, it is an agendized item, so you do have the ability to, if you choose to pass and just send us an email, I will be comfortable with that as well. Is that okay? Perfect. Thank you. And if the committee members have the questions for them too, please have them send us an email. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck. Okay. 8.4, presentation and discussion of the strategic plan perspective, student success. We have been on a mission as a district to be focused, and taking this opportunity to look at each pillar gives us an opportunity to do more with what we have and offer more to our students. And so, Dr. Bell, we are excited to hear what you have to share. Governing board, are you wanting to go side by side or have Dr. Bell present and then we can just follow up at the end? Okay, all right, perfect. And we do have one request to speak, so it sounds from the consensus of the board, we'll just listen to you go through the slide deck, we'll get public comment, and then we'll open up for dialogue.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me, President Ceja Martinez, board members, Mr. Savoy. I'm excited tonight to talk about our strategic plan perspective on student success. Like my colleagues, we're going to be talking about, oops, I'm not doing this right. Yeah, they're not, oh, there it is. Like my colleagues, I'm going to start with a very broad overview of some of the work that we have been paying attention to this year associated with student success. Please know, as a strategic initiatives, we purposefully selected areas of work that we knew by our data were really kind of getting in our way of greater success over time. So these were hard issues for us to wrestle with, and we've made some progress. So again, tonight, this is a broad paintbrush or an overview, and then throughout the rest of this quarter until the end of June, we'll be bringing back and doing a deep dive into these areas with data. Student success, if you remember, is defined as ensuring that all students achieve college and career readiness while discovering and fulfilling their potential. In the area of student success, we selected various programs or projects that we knew we really wanted to pay attention to. The first one has to do with high school course credits. We were trying to expand, if you will, some online learning opportunities, but also help students access classes, courses, and credits when in fact they hadn't been successful before. Another project was looking at student achievement in core areas, particularly in the area of reading and mathematics, as well as social studies and science, knowing we were going to have new standards come in to play this year. The third area that we worked on this year is to look at areas associated with our growth or lack thereof of students in two subgroups, namely students in special education and our EL student population. And finally, the fourth has to do with an overall approach to student learning and instruction in Peoria Unified School District, wherein the district really paying attention to and checking for understanding how well students are doing during instruction, and then how does the system respond when the student did not learn it or did not master it, or in fact, if the other students did learn it, how do we honor that learning as opposed to have them sit through yet more instruction on something that they already know and can do. I'm going to talk a little bit about the high school opportunities for credit. The first is our e-campus. Over the last few years, we have expanded courses available. We now have 37 courses, and we have consistent student enrollment over the past 3 years. The summer enrollment, as you notice, we have 717 now. We have a great deal of summer enrollment that begins the first day when students go on summer vacation, and then throughout the summer months. I was pleased to see that the reason students are taking e-campus opportunities is and we can talk about all the data later, but I was very excited to see that students are growing more comfortable in online coursework. So there's an increase of students saying that they are more and more successful in an online environment. We also have we selected Edgenuity as a consistent program that offers online resources, not just for credit recovery, which is where we started, but for regular classroom instruction. This is an area that we have struggled with over the years. We did add in Edgenuity additional elective courses for students to work through and gain credit in a shorter period of time than in just a semester. So students, not just at PFA, where we've had Edgenuity in place, but students in all high schools can accelerate and gain credit in a variety of courses. We do have an upcoming training for summer school teachers so that we can use Edgenuity for students who need to repeat a course or gain credit over the summer. We know we want to roll out next year additional components of Edgenuity for all teachers. The program offers a pre-test. It can offer a very prescriptive path in terms of helping students at their level of ability proceed through lessons. That's also called My Path, which again is an individualized program to help students who need additional support, and again, the summer school credit recovery efforts. The second project has to do with the core content standards and growth. One area is reading and ELA, or the English Language Arts. So we've done a great deal of professional development this year in terms of providing support for teachers that we talked to the governing board about last December in our work session. So we now have had, in this past year, Teaching Reading Effectively professional development for 74 teachers. We have purchased the Foundations Phonics program for K-3 teachers. So we have had training for 450 teachers that's planned through this summer in July. We've provided professional development for K-8 teachers in the purchase of iReady Reading Diagnostic. The iReady Reading Diagnostic replaces the old DIBELS and is that required assessment for K-3 students in reading. we've chosen to implement a reading diagnostic in grades K-8 so that we could get a dipstick, if you will, in terms of Lexile levels for students and how much they may be struggling in the area of reading, broken down by phonemic awareness, comprehension, etc., in that particular data. We did keep the implementation of iReady in 9th grade in our high schools, knowing that we have non-readers or struggling readers that enter into our high schools and need a structured support plan for reading. Those interventions with System 44 also provides additional support to EL students that come into the high school and are struggling in the area of reading. The other content areas that we focused on this year has to do with math, science, and social studies. We've provided a lot of mathematics professional development on our adopted materials. That's ongoing. To date, we have 657 teachers in K-5 that have dived into our current math adoption. We also have 6th through 8th grade teachers who are getting additional training in Glencoe. We purchased graphing calculators for high school Algebra 1 and will start training for 35 teachers on May 6th. Graphing calculators are essential to mathematics. Students use them not just through their high school career, but well into college. Graphing calculators have the tendency to be a little expensive. While there might be cheaper online solutions for graphing calculators, keep in mind that we are not a one-on-one system of devices at the high school level. So we have purchased graphing calculators for students to share during classroom instruction, and the graphing calculators can also be used on some standardized tests. We know we have the new state science and social studies standards that will be a heavy lift for us. There are not just content standards that came out with both science and social studies. There are also process standards. So that's going to require a new way of working with students in terms of instruction and student learning. So we'll have work to do there. We will look at the development of curriculum and benchmarks aligned to new state standards that will include, over time, attention to social studies and science, and obviously professional development, lesson design and instructional support for teacher teams, and curriculum work as well. Project 3 has to do with our subgroup performance. We have a little over 5,000 students that we serve in special education, and they qualify in 16 areas of support under IDEA. Our English language learners are a little over 1,000, so we've done quite a bit of work to really dig down into our data and issues associated with our achievement gap and some lack of student success with these particular subgroups. Some of the work that's ongoing now are really taking a look at our high school courses and the course development for special education students. We're upgrading those high school templates for special education grading and assessment. This year, the special education team worked with PEP, Exceptional Parents, for quarterly workshops to expand our opportunities for the community. We did a deep dive into a 3-year-old CMISI audit that was conducted for special education when Dr. Stifler was here. That CMISI report is very comprehensive and broad-based, so it addresses everything from governing board policy to curriculum and assessment to current practices. It's a report that tells us what we should begin taking a look at to improve our program and services in special education. An example of that has to do with our job descriptions and expanded roles. Coordinators, as an example, here at the district level, we've had 4 that address all kinds of special education issues, from compliance to student programming issues, etc. So we know we need more support and services for our schools and students and parents. We also know that we need to take a look at those particular job descriptions to support evaluations across the district for special education staff members. That's just one example of what would be in the audit. One that keeps coming up not only for special education, but is critical to our success, for student success or student growth, is the idea of the implementation of differentiated instruction and a multi-tiered approach. That was in our special education audit, not just as a special education issue, but that's a systems issue. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We need to look at the revamp of caseload numbers. We looked at that very carefully. To better support students, we had a lot of teacher travel from school to school with higher caseloads that were very, very difficult to manage. So we're taking a look at that data and trying to staff to better support students and eliminate an extensive travel between buildings. And then finally, ongoing training for special education staff, particularly in the area of cognitive reading strategies and our specialized programs like autism, for example. So all of those 16 areas that kids qualify in would be areas that take very specialized training for the special education teachers and the large number of aides that support those students and teachers in the classroom. I'm pleased to share progress in terms of programming also for English learners in Peoria Unified School District. We celebrated when we were approved to move to a mixed classroom model that supported EL students in a mixed classroom setting with English-speaking peers. So we're working on that for implementation this next year, K-12. We've identified additional EL supplemental resources for use in classrooms so that teachers have materials to work with students, whether they're at the beginning level or pre-emergent or at that intermediate level. We looked carefully when we looked at our data and noted that we had too many students, over 200, who were dual coded for students, and they were dual coded in our system for both EL and special education. We began to look into at the individual level, drilling down into those evaluations and the IEP process to determine if the placement in both was appropriate. And in fact, we began moving students, having IEP meetings with parents to move students out of EL program for that 4-hour day plus special education. It meant in some cases that the students had very little or no access to general ed grade level curriculum, which is not what we want for students, and I'll come back to that as I talk about the tiered approach. We have done training for administrators, done a lot more training for assistant principals, particularly in terms of procedures and looking at those dual codes very carefully so we make sure that each and every individual student has access to that general curriculum, and our procedures are matching and following the students to either pull them out of programs or put them in a particular setting for the least restrictive environment in terms of the special education, but also for the EL learners. Next year, we are going to have a teacher training program for that mixed classroom model, and we will have teachers receive, who are teaching the ELA, a $3,000 stipend to note that they are doing extra work, extra planning, and certainly participating in the required professional development that will be a part of that plan. This is probably the biggest district-wide project that we began taking a look at for multi-tiered system of support and developing a collaborative approach to how we work with kids. I moved from an instructional model to actually calling it a student learning model. We need to own and make sure that all students are achieving at a high level. To that end, we knew that this second order change or cultural change was going to be a long process and difficult to work with over time. It is a change process. So to that end, we began with the idea of understanding that teacher leadership was going to be essential to this plan. We have 42 site teams, all of whom have teacher leadership representation. We have 224 participating teachers on these teams, so the training is fairly intense, but the principal, assistant principal, coaches, et cetera, have a lot of support in beginning to implement this back at their sites. The PLC process this year has supported the idea that collaborative teams need to begin with norms and how they interact and work with each other as they examine student learning and what students need from best first instruction to Tier 2 and Tier 3. If you look at the triangle, you would see that in this diagram, Tier 1 instruction is intended to work for a majority of the students, or 80% of the kids, and kids get it and we move on. Tier 2 means that there could be kids who need additional or moderate support, more time, reteaching, etc., to understand that grade level content curriculum because they might not have gotten that the first time. Tier 3 is an intense, focused effort in terms of providing students not just flexible time. This is typically intensive support over time. This might be for a student, as an example, who is reading 2 to 3 grade levels below, and we need to intervene with an intensive support plan. Part of the process in doing this means that we, yes.
Can you go back to that? So where is the other 5%?
Oh, did I not get that right?
Well, you've got 80, 10, and 5.
The middle should say 10 to 15.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry.
Wasn't going to ask because we said
There's some math for you, right? Okay.
Okay, I got it.
I did, now that I'm going back here to the critical piece, I call it the pivot piece in this process, is what is called the deconstruction of standards in the common formative assessments. That means that all teachers have to have a very sophisticated level of understanding of the state standards. So they have to do the work. We all have to engage in looking at those standards, understanding them very well, and identifying at what depth of knowledge level that's required so that we're teaching at that depth of level 3 or a more sophisticated, difficult critical thinking standard, as opposed to just a DOK 1 or a recall, a more simple approach in terms of the sophistication of thinking. The critical piece to this, the linchpin, is kind of the common formative assessments created by teacher teams, so that there is an ongoing every week, every 2 weeks process by which we know what kids get it and what kids did not. So in that process, we then would begin to own the responsibility for student learning for the students that obviously need more time and support. With that, we have this is used for benchmark reporting, but it does give us a pretty clear picture in terms of how it can be used for common formative assessments. In this particular diagram, which is first grade mathematics benchmark, we see that the standards are color-coded, if you will, and we see a percentage of how students did on this particular benchmark. This too can be used and get this visual for teacher-created common formative assessments. To that end, this is a report that also accompanies that. So you can tell by this particular first grade classroom that the blue and the green are close to either at mastery or close to mastery on this particular assessment. But some students need reteaching in the yellow areas. If teachers bring this up on their system and click on the yellow, they will list the student names for small group instruction who need that additional time and support or intervention in this case. We know that to get that additional time and support, we have to look at a master schedule for a little bit of flexibility and intervention time for individuals who need that Tier 3 intervention. This year, we've also looked at the skill set levels of our administrators in identifying really good first quality instruction in the green area. We've spent an enormous amount of time, not only in training for clinical supervision, and for our coaches as well, but we are now going into classrooms together, conducting instructional rounds and practicing with teachers on the coaching process. Finally, we're looking at the revision of our teacher evaluation instrument for our future, and we started looking at specific components of that evaluation instrument, creating an observation tool, if you will, that we've used for training prior to the revision of the comprehensive document. As we move forward from here until the end of June, there were some additional opportunities, I suppose, for us to look at data, dive a little bit deeper into these areas with these department teams who are doing this work. On April 25th, we can talk about the student learning model and professional learning communities, as well as that teacher evaluation instrument and observation tool that we're currently using. On May 9th, the new social studies and science standards. May 30th, special education and EL, as well as gifted education that I know you've expressed interest in. On June 13th, phonics, the ELA, and the mathematics standards. And then the June 27th, like my colleagues, we start with the overview and end with the quarter briefing. What I would like to ask the governing board, because the people that would be joining me for some of this work and presentation include these teacher leaders. We would like to have either an activity area, a work session, etc., because we really would like to invite the governing board to be a part of some of those activities that our teachers have been a part of. Specifically for a possible work study session, we are humbly requesting April 25th, May 9th, and June 13th to either remove you from that area, have you participate in some of these activities with our teachers, and kind of get a sense of what our model looks like as we begin to move forward.
For the record, I did not ask for a study session, but I want to say somebody agrees with me.
That concludes our overview, and I'm open to any comments or questions.
Well, thank you very much. This definitely started the opportunity to have a lot of dialogue. From my understanding, the governing board has sent some questions and you've addressed some of them, but we're going to go ahead and dive in. But right before we do have a student comment.
Okay.
That we're going to start. Mr. Christopher Wedding from Centennial High School. He's a senior. And the same rules apply as our general community, 3 minutes, and we appreciate the opportunity to hear you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, parents, teachers, community members. Just one topic I think that we should focus on when talking about student success is school schedules, particularly the start and end times, and how that may affect student success in the classroom. Recently, I conducted a survey of 100 high school students, 25 from each grade, on how much they sleep each night. 41% said they get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. 42% said they get 5 to 6 hours of sleep. 16% said they get 3 to 4 hours of sleep, and only 1% said 9 to 10 hours. Another survey I conducted shows that a majority of high school students at PSD believe that we should change the start time to a later time, particularly around 8 a.m. And that same survey shows that 70% of those students believe that if high school started later, they would attain more sleep. So a good majority of students are supportive of changes to the school schedule. And one study done by University of Washington that focused on high school district, a school district in Seattle that changed their schedule to about 45 minutes later from 7:45 to 8:30 a.m. showed that after the changes, students gained on average about 35 minutes of sleep per school night. And why this may be is that adolescents' circadian rhythm is different due to puberty, and it's adjusted longer, so they're more likely to go to sleep later at night and more sensitive to light in the morning. So in the study, they also showed that the students were able to increase their grades by about 10% and improve their attendance for first hour significantly. So what can we do to improve student schedules here in the PUSD? First, I believe that in order to adequately address this subject, there should be a committee formed addressing the topic of school schedules and how it impacts student success. So by establishing a committee that is made up of teachers, students, staff, and parents that is looking into this matter of possibly changing the schedule to better accommodate student success, I think we could learn more and determine if there's a more positive path forward, and something I'd like you to consider at your next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot of time and research went into that, and we appreciate your time bringing that forward on behalf of your students. Okay, so we are going to continue and have the dialogue on student success. We'll go ahead and start with Ms. Pangarelli.
Well, thank you. Well, I wanted to go back to the why we're here, which is student success, ensuring all students achieve college and career readiness while discovering and fulfilling their potential. And I was a little dismayed that there was no data, because you know how I like data. Dr. Bell. So I went ahead and I pulled some myself. I pulled the 2018 AZ Merit assessment results. This is for ELA for all grades. 58% of our students, that's 21,247 students, are below needed ELA skills to be successful according to data posted on the ADE, the Arizona Department of Education website. For our third graders, ELA results, 55% of our third graders, students are below needed ELA skills to be successful going into the next grade level. And was even more shocking was the ELA results for 11th graders. 75% of our 11th grade students are below needed ELA skills to be successful going into their senior year. So I'm having a hard time. We're obviously not, the students aren't achieving career and college readiness. This is a crisis. On the next slide, you have, by August 2019, the district will increase student achievement in core content areas, K through 12. Are we going to go from 75% below needed? Are we going to bump it up to 70? And what do you foresee us going up to for our 11th graders?
Well, one of the things that we've been working on, and I want to go back to this slide, is the issue of the concern about our lack of student success and what those problems are. So in working with the principals, we go through the process of looking at our data and trying to dig into some of those root causes for the lack of student growth, student performance, et cetera. I'm glad you brought up the ELA, because in drilling down through that data, we have a reading issue in our school district, and know that in some grade levels, as students progress through our system, we're not keeping up with the expected Lexile level or performance in reading across our system. So in taking a look at that, that's also why we began to look at a different model so that we could own whether or not students are learning or students are reading and what they need to get that more time and support. Typically, when people begin really taking a look at the standards and understanding where kids are in implementing the research-based PLC model, we might expect to see a bump. Marla and I ran very recent data associated with those Lexile levels in reading, and what we have is actually in Peoria an inverted triangle, which means these particular numbers aren't necessarily where we see our kids right now. We have more kids who need that flex time in the middle, and certainly at the top of this pyramid than these numbers might suggest, because over time we have not kept up with the kind of reading growth that we should expect to see. Do I think we'll make progress? I think it will be minimal because of this alignment issue. And I mean alignment by the idea that not all teachers have a crystal clear understanding of the state standards that they are to teach. That's one. The other alignment issue has a lot to do, I think, around how do we work with kids when we're teaching. I provided the instruction, but the kids didn't get it. So we have to have a plan so that we own the idea that all kids are going to learn it, and we need, as a system, to be able to respond to that. So we've seen that data. We have other data points, Ms. Pingarelli, associated with reading that cause us to be alarmed.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was hoping that tonight you would provide data. I mean, because you really have to know where we're starting from and where we want to go. And you have to be honest. I know we always talk about a 93-94% graduation rate, and that's great. I want to see the students get through, but they have to be ready to move on.
I completely agree.
And I know, and your other, I know we've gone back to the phonics program, and I'm really happy because I think K through the third grade is essential. If the students aren't reading, they're just getting progressively worse. I mean, in my opinion, and the data shows it. And I think that we're hopefully going to change that at the earlier grade levels with the phonics program.
I believe that the crisis that you speak of and the lack of some fundamental programming has impacted our students' ability to read at very high levels. The levels now that's expected have increased at least 1 to 2 grade levels from where they were prior to the AZ merit. So the Lexile level expectations are higher. Unfortunately for us, even some of our resources do not align. So what we're putting in front of students to read at, say, 4th grade level now looks like 2nd grade level. So when we have adopted curriculum and we've had these discussions about the lack of funds, but what we are presenting kids with isn't at that correct level of difficulty. So students don't have a lot of access, particularly in the area of reading. So we have concerns about that and are working with our teachers to have dialogues around how do we get started. We too felt like the reading fundamentals is critical with primary reading and phonics. So we were delighted when we were able to move forward with foundations so we can get back to some of those reading foundations. The lowest performing students in reading at this point are students in middle school, grades 6 through 8. As I look backwards in terms of when we left off with Spalding years ago and what that gap is in terms of that fundamental reading instruction, we could suggest that a root cause was the elimination of some of those reading foundations at those primary grades. Kids continue to move on, and without a strong reading foundation, they're going to struggle. They will particularly struggle on the AZ merit because regardless of the content that's being tested, all of them are reading assessments.
Okay.
Ms. Beccarelli, I just want to add one comment on one of your statements. You mentioned, Dr. Bell, that do teachers know the standards? I would even go as far as and question, do our administrators know the standards? Because they should be evaluating our teachers on the standards that they go into the classroom. So I would look forward seeing what evidence you're providing. Do our administrators know the standards as well?
It's a good question, and we agree. We've got work to do.
Okay. I would like to see the AZ merit scores from last year and compare them to this year. I know we are having an emphasis on personalized learning. I had 1 or 2 board meetings ago, I had asked for a list of the personalized learning programs and their cost, their annual licensing fees, but mainly the percentage utilization by our teachers. Because if they're not, I mean, funding, the last agenda item was about the bond. Funding is at a limited. So I would like to spend our dollars wisely on programs that are going to be extremely beneficial. And then I found out that, I think it's iReady, that students have to, or I'm not sure if they're required to do 45 minutes per week. And do we have a digital fatigue amongst students?
We can. The recommended minutes of time are research-based with these systems that we're purchasing, where I think we have the tendency to make a mistake in using resources is that we think, in some cases, that the system will either mean a lot of success or ultimately result in student success, which that's rare to happen without a teacher, a qualified teacher, I might add. And then the second piece of that is the idea that, well, if kids are on it longer, even more growth will occur, which is not accurate. So what we are trying to do, particularly iReady is a good example, we have good usage because we are doing that together as a system in terms of the diagnostic and the student online practice. You can have fatigue if we have too many things in front of kids that are electronic tools. So we have to be very careful about that.
Okay. Thank you. And then I just wanted to know, on these programs, have we asked what do students think about them, and what do the teachers think about them?
We did in the original pilot process that we came out of for 2 years. We were not only collecting that initial usage data or utilization data, but we began that dialogue, some surveys, focus groups, and even some community member input. We began to look at what we were using, and what we found was that there was a lot of digital tools out there. People were exploring, so that was refreshing to some degree, but there was a bit of a digital overload on our system and probably on the students. So we began to see some programs working better than others, and those had to do with the implementation and the commitment of the teacher teams or schools to implement one particular program with fidelity. If they were trying more tools, then maybe not. In fact, we know that through that evaluation process, we probably weren't doing a very good job with a clean implementation and evaluation. So it might look like a product didn't work at all, but when in fact, either the usage was low, there was no professional development with that tool because it was this exploration time.
Yes, I was part of that exploration time. I had concerns about, we had like 39 or 40 programs we were exploring. There was, there was potentially, there was a big cost to that. And I wanted to find out, do you know how many programs? We went from 39 to 40. You had a presentation, I think, back in May. I thought we were down to 3 or 4 programs.
Probably not 3 or 4 programs overall. That evening, I recommended 3 programs that we made some decisions on associated with a whole district implementation. That was iReady, that took the place of Dibbles. It was the Read 180 System 44 for 9th grade, and that is a Tier 3 intervention for kids who need a lot of support with reading at 9th grade. And the 4th one was Edgenuity. This year we tried to begin that with credit recovery and some testing, ACT content support for teachers in the core content. So those were the 3 that we recommended that encompass some of our work this year. What we also have in place, and my understanding, it's it's not a list that has been vetted recently. It's a supplement list that is posted, and it contains a list of materials that teachers or schools can choose to purchase, and that also may have some digital tools on it, say for science or for use in our libraries. It also would have novel titles. for the literature classes in middle school and high school. So in a very recent conversation with my team, we know that we need to come up with a process to review those supplementary materials and begin narrowing that focus.
Okay, I mean, I like to see that individual schools are able to purchase their own. I mean, the administrators hopefully have a firm handle on their students and know what would work best for their students. But I just wanted to say that I don't want to be afraid of looking at the data. I mean, because if it's good, bad,
I agree.
it needs to be out there, or we're just we're not attacking it the way we should, and the board needs to know that. And the more data that's provided, the better. And just to summarize it, the district is very diverse. Okay, and if a student can't read, there is no equality, no equity in the school, in the PUSD. So I think that don't be afraid to look at the data. Don't be afraid to bring the data because that's how we're going to be making the decisions. Yeah. Go ahead.
One thing I did in talking to Mr. Savoy and my colleagues, we had the data's deep, and I think we can certainly bring that forward, but we can do it during these, although there's going to be a lot of data.
Yeah.
We also suggested possibly an end-of-year work session with our governing board to dig into some of that data, even if it was a half a day or a day, where we're really looking at not just the one data set. And I understand the high stakes is AZ merit, but we have that Lexile reading data that is causing us some concern. We know which schools need more support than others. So as we respond and build this multi-tiered system of support, we need to be obligated to provide the necessary resources and support for those schools. So they're all over the place, but reading continues to be a data point that would underscore our biggest concern in terms of academic achievement.
Well, you know how I like looking at the data, so 4 hours of diving into the data would be great for me. I don't know about the other board members, but I'd be fine with that.
You say study session, board retreat, sign me up.
And on that, I'll finish, and I just want to say thank you very much
Thank you. I
for all
appreciate
the
it.
questions and answering so honestly.
Thank you. Ms. Underhill.
Yeah, I also want to thank you because I know this is like so big and you've done so much work on so many different aspects of, our student population and how do we make sure that everybody's successful. The area where I, having just come from being a teacher, where I kind of see a gap is on the slide that we currently have up there where it talks about deconstruction of standards into learning targets, and then it immediately goes to development of common formative assessments. Kind of the screaming gap to me is curriculum and content. So we've got the what they got to learn, and we've got how we're going to measure it, but how are we going to teach it, and what are we going to teach them to make them learn? So I guess being in the classroom and as an elementary teacher having, 4 or 5 subjects to teach, I get that you want us to crystal clear understand every standard, but we all know there's oodles of standards. And so trying to take those standards and then identify viable resources to teach the children what those are, that's great. And if one teacher in one classroom can do that, that's awesome. But the problem is when you go from school to school and even grade to grade in some cases, it's completely different. And I think that's where we've kind of fallen off, is that I'm not saying I'm not for teacher autonomy, I am. I'm not saying I'm not for local school control and looking into their own student needs, but we have got to have some sort of a foundational piece, a foundational pathway for our teachers to be able to make sure that we're getting that consistent, equitable education to all of our kids. So I guess my question is, how do you define curriculum, and do we have a plan at some point to better develop that and present it for all of our teachers across all of our, schools so that they know where to go. Because if you go to our curriculum website right now, we all know it's a hodgepodge of year-to-year pacing guides for this, and there's folders for that. And I'm curious as what, are we going for that kind of broader direction?
We are going for a broader direction because we know that the people who write the curriculum are the ones who what? Understand it, right? So sometimes if a district proceeds to have a team of teachers who begins to write the curriculum, write the learning targets, write the CFAs, and it is expected that it's a lockstep curriculum that in some cases, as our consultant group that we're working with, we sometimes steal the learning from teachers. And I like that because I think that's true. In talking with teachers, some of them have been in the process of, I don't look at the standards, I use my book. Or I teach this unit that I developed that in fact may or may not be aligned to the standards. So that's the alignment flip that we need to make. And I believe that the best way to move forward is a multi-tiered system of support and a collaborative approach. So we have to work smarter in teacher teams because the day of I'm on my own, I'm going to go in here and shut my door with these 30 kids isn't getting us the results that we want. We need those teacher teams to own each and every kid at that grade level or in that content to begin to share and move kids who need additional flexible time and support. So that's the kind of second order change piece that's going to be a part of the system of what we're trying to create. Today, we met with our administrative team and began to look at and turn over any and all rocks associated with that site schedule. So what we meant by that was how can we build in time for teachers for that level of collaboration. We are using the modified Monday time, so we have some time available for that. And we really need them to dig into those standards. So the third grade teacher at this school and the third grade teacher at that school have the same level of understanding and instruction, if you will, so that they can get the results that we know we need. Only then will we have a guaranteed and viable curriculum when from school to school to school, that third grader who moves has a same and consistent experience and is learning and exiting the end of third grade expectations, which is set within those standards.
So what you're saying is that's what we're moving toward?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and I understand, I've been trying to read about the professional learning community process. It's not a meeting, and and I look forward to attending some of those so we can understand that. I guess I want to know how it's all going to come together, and then my follow-up to that is just, as that comes together, will our PD, align with that so that, we'll have kind of that, okay.
We need to narrow the focus. Our teacher teams, those 224 teachers, plus their administrative group that we're working with, the first two things that they need help with are the deconstruction of those standards and understanding the standards, and number two, the development of common formative assessments to check for understanding in terms of the learning targets that are taught.
Great, thank you very much.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bell. I'm going to piggyback on something that Ms. Pingarelli stated, and I agree. I mean, I think these meetings, and this is really a statement for everybody, we should be okay with having courageous conversations. They're not to try to poke holes, in a program or a process. It's really to introduce to us, maybe potentially some of the opportunities that you realize or see in the district and allow 5 different lenses, to add some thought on how we can help you and team, be successful. So with that said, I agree. I mean, we need to understand where we're at before we know where we're going, right? And I think data is critically important to be successful, to understand it, right? But I'd like to, take it a step further and humanizing that data. So the numbers are great, but understanding what's behind those numbers, meaning the mental wellness, of our student population, which is something I don't totally see in here, but I'm sure you're thinking about it, is just truly understanding, I think we can add more time into reading without question. But if our students aren't in the right mindset to learn, we're still going to be ineffective there. So, I'd like to see, really how that kind of the social emotional learning integrates, into, your plan. And then two is, I did hear some of the dialogue that was going on out there, and it was great to listen to all the collaboration of the site administrators and the discussions that they had today and the hard work that they're putting in. But, how are some of the other verticals within our district integrated, meaning like finance in that regard? Because I think Ms. Pringarelli, when she brought up, as we go through this process, I think it is going to expose some, not really redundancy, but some, where we're, I guess, fatting away with regard to programs, right? Potential dollars that could, maybe be moved over, to salaries, to Ms. Seha Martinez's point. So that said, how we work collaboratively, but not in pillars at the district level, and also how our associations are engaged. Are our associations engaged in these brainstorming sessions?
Yes, they are. We share with them some of our concerns, certainly. Just recently, Marla and I had a small focus group in terms of reading and what those challenges were. Our finance team, Michelle Myers and Laurie Staples, joined us so we could all begin listening to not only their concerns, but suggested next steps from the field, namely teachers, reading teachers, et cetera. So I know that we're trying to look at what we're doing here so that we can come up with solutions to these big rock problems, whether that's obviously you heard tonight about compensation, but certainly about reading or reading adoption, et cetera. I will share, while it's not in this particular project area of student success, we did place it in student safety. This triangle is represented, and research would indicate that they go together. One side of this triangle is academics. The other side of this triangle is social emotional learning and student behavior supports. So what we do there, the same numbers apply, although they're wrong, so 10 to 15%. What we would do there is for social emotional learning, at that 80%, all kids deserve what for social emotional learning? What is our intervention plan for kids who need additional support and additional time for social emotional issues? And then what is our plan if kids move from Tier 2 to Tier 3 and need outside agency support, and what's our plan to get that done? This year, we would celebrate the fact that not only are we starting on the academic side of the house, we are also starting on the social emotional learning start of the house. Dr. Marshall Walters and Kathleen Leonard have taken the lead in that work. I know some of you have worked with them and have met them, and they too will have a funnel or a triangle or whatever visual approach as they build that out. In talking with Mr. Savoy recently, we would also propose that we do that presentation in terms of an up-to-date progress report this spring for our governing board, so that they understand the work that's been done and our efforts to begin building out Tier 1 with a social emotional curriculum proposal that will be coming to the governing board.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Stone?
All right. I will try to be very quick here since I have to leave in a few minutes. Does anybody have data on reading levels at graduation now and reading levels like maybe 20 years ago at graduation level? I'd like to see, and what were we using then, and why don't kids learn to read now?
I can tell you that there is research and data associated with the changes in expectations. And really, as kids exit us upon graduation, what Lexile levels they need to be at. Let me put something together for you to take a look at, because over the years, obviously the sophistication of what kids read and the levels have changed. So I can look at some national research associated with that and provide that in a report to the board.
Because, yeah, it seems to me like this crisis, like in third grade and stuff like that, that seems fairly new to me. All this business with kids not being able to read and reading below standards, and I talked to some children, and they're like, no, I can't really read. And they can't. And it's not that the standard is high in elementary school, in third grade and stuff. Not from what I've seen. And I don't know what the exit expectations are. I know when I was in school, we had to be able to read everything. I mean, pretty much. So what I would like to know is, why? And why did we change the way we teach when it was working? It wasn't broken. Why did we fix it? And now it's broken pretty badly, obviously. I think there's not a lot of stuff we can do to help those. I mean, we're going to do our best. But if somebody's in the 11th grade and they can't read at grade level, they're not going to be able to do their other work. They're not going to understand their science or their history, geography. They're not going to understand that stuff. And I've taken foreign languages, and I know when you can't do the language, you can't do anything else. And I think everybody in this room knows that. I told my son once when he was very young and he was complaining about diagramming sentences, I said, if you can read, there's a library down the street. You can learn anything you want to learn. You don't even have to go to college. As far as, I mean, I wasn't particularly, but it's like, there's information. You can get it. If you can read, you can get any information you want. And this is the basis to our student success, that desire. I think that's where it has failed in a lot of areas, is the students maybe don't have the desire to learn to read. Maybe the digital age has brought them where they all want to see everything visual, cartoon kind of style and stuff. I don't know. But I think it's worth looking into. What is it that is causing this root problem that the children don't want to read? And I ask my little friends, I say, do you want to read a book? And they're like, no, I don't like to read. And I'm like, what? Because reading is access. So I'm really interested in learning, why it is that they don't want to read, and why we changed how we were teaching, because it was working. We had a nation of literate people, and I think that's changing. We're changing into a nation of people that can't read, and that scares the tar out of me. We're changing. People. It's scary. So having said that, and gotten that off my chest, I would like to know about the special education. What I see in here, I'm encouraged by some of the changes I see, but I would like to know with the implementation of the differentiated instruction and the multi-tiered approach, that is going to take more staff, correct?
Not necessarily. We have added staff due to some of the shortage that we've had and the travel time. What I know we need to do a better job at in terms of differentiation is providing that necessary small group instruction.
Yes.
When we know that students are struggling in first instruction or in that classroom. If that student is struggling, we need to check for understanding, and when we know it, we have to own it and do something about that. The first intervention in classrooms is typically small group, so that the teacher is working with students to give them, again, that extra time and support for learning.
And now I visited the special ed classes and just trying to get it in my head. It's broken down. The size of the class is related to the individual's IEP, right?
Sometimes we do small group instruction, however, in a resource room, say, but, and we also should be doing small group instruction in the general ed classroom. So it often depends on the IEP and particularly as the student's goals.
Right. Do we have, at this time, are we fully staffed in special education?
I would say we have some work to do in terms of the infrastructure of special education. That I gave the example of the coordinator role, the job descriptions, and the work that that particular employee group does. So I think we can make some improvements, and I believe that Holly Harper, our director, would say the same thing.
Well, I will give an example of an IEP calling for a small group, no more than 5 or 6 should have been in the entire class with this individual, and yet they were in a class of like 25 special needs children. And so that leads me to believe that in that instance, maybe there weren't enough available. So we have to be fully, and it's hard to be fully staffed. It's hard to get these teachers. That's a lot of work. It takes. I've seen that job a lot. I lived that job somewhat. If you can please keep me up to date on our special education needs and openings we have. Do we have, now this is a stupid question, but I just realized I don't know. Does funding for those teachers come from the Title I?
No.
I think it comes with the regular.
Funding for special education comes from IDEA as well as some district budget.
Okay. Okay, so, but the question is not whether we really can afford the extra teachers, whether we can find the extra teachers, right?
We have struggled with that. Special education teachers are hard to come by.
Oh, yes.
So it is sometimes a difficult staffing situation.
Okay, all right. Anyway, I'm very heartened by some of the programs I see that you're working with, and I know that the variation in learning ability with these students is it's such a wide difference with the different students. So I just want to say that I'm glad we're making some moves. I'm glad we're doing some things, and this was very encouraging to me, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm between you and letting go. Thank you. I know this is a lot. We're the 4th largest district in the state of Arizona. It's a lot of work, and we're very diverse, and we have a lot of communities, so thank you, first and foremost. I'm just going to try to go through the slides and not be redundant. The first thing I look at when I look at student success is who are our students? how many ESL students, special ed, looking at those demographics, is who are we meeting the needs of? And so I would like to know more about that and humanizing that data as well. Going into student success, so I've had some time to observe the stewardship of resources, and we're going through this process, and we're looking at it as silos right now so that we can have a better understanding as we move forward and look at the whole system, because ultimately every pillar is integrated and should be collaborative. So I would hope that as you go through this process, our district administration are having those PLC communities as well aligned to each of these areas. But specifically looking at our goals. I've had some work with goals in my professional career, and when we discuss goals, we want a specific measure, time frame, and I look at these first four, and these are activities: earning and high school course, learning through PLC. Those are activities. We can observe them, but there's no measurement. What's the outcome we're looking for? Be specific. I want a measurable outcome. So then that way we can communicate to our sites, our parents, our teachers. This is where we're at. This is where the gap is. This is where we need a tweak, and what's our progress to that goal. Something we can put on our governing board docs to say this is where we're at. So we're missing that huge piece. And I like that you said in professional, and I quoted you, narrowing the focus. So when we take a look at our teacher goals, and I see the board gets the list of professional development coursework. It's a plethora of options. So if I'm a teacher in this district and I'm brand new, I could go to this one week, next week I'm going to this one. We want the teacher to show growth. So what's her goal to grow as a professional? And what is the evidence is going to prove that she went from A to B by the end of the year? And having a plethora menu of options with no focus is a recipe for disaster. So I would like to see the board presented with some options, or a sample of what that narrow focus would look like. Okay, moving on. I sent you a ton of questions and with the mindset of an overview so that we can revisit. I'm going to skip to project 1, high school opportunities for credit. A positive is that our students have the ability to be homebound students, have access to e-learning. That is important. I know in the real world, when you get a new career, you need to learn how to maneuver those e-learnings. I question the integrity. Who's teaching these? I would like to know the background on who's teaching, who's doing these online courses. How do we ensure our kids are going in, if it's a math class or an ELA class, I want to know that they're coming into a setting where, like in college, you show an ID, they're the ones taking the test, so that we don't lose that integrity of instruction. Children are really getting that content. What courses are we offering for Ingenuity? Who's eligible? What's the cost per student? Sciences, looking at the new state standards of the science in the labs. Are we doing that in an e-learning environment? Are we compromising what the intent of the new state standards are for science? Are our teachers highly qualified? I know
yes, they're required to be highly qualified.
In each content area for science as well. So that would be, because that's a lot of information I don't have, is what courses are online versus.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I just meant that all of our teachers in that e-campus environment are highly qualified for the course that they teach.
Okay. Is there ever an environment where there's more than one class going on? So like, if you have 20 kids that are taking different classes and there's only one teacher observing, is that, or supporting, or is it one class, one teacher?
It's one teacher assigned to that one e-class.
Okay, thank you. Project 2, core content standards. We've made a lot of effort towards this in our reading, K-3. I know we have more than 74 teachers. So the data with how many are state trained at the department versus Peoria Unified, because the Peoria Unified Modified Monday is a short version. So I just wanted to see what the difference is, and if you're tracking their success rates of going to the state versus taking PUSD, if the outcomes are different.
The ADE is a week-long course, so they're out all week. We have sent 74 this year. So the modification for the PUSD is a much shorter training. We started with the effort around making sure that some of those schools that we've identified in our data, we offered those principals slots to begin first.
Perfect. And as I know we're just in this process, are teachers that go to the state week-long training more effective versus the PUSD offering in short silos? So something to consider as we move forward. With the math and science, I know when I took my master's and I had counting, we use an app. I know graphing calculators, you did make a valid point that when doing standardized testing, some of our graphing calculators can be utilized versus an app may not be an approved instrument. Something to consider, free resources versus graphing calculators, something that can teachers be given modifying Mondays to use other resources to learn other than what we're doing. The only other thing I have in this piece is where is our national board certified fit into this model, because the board has already approved stipends for that, and I don't see anything on that story, or we haven't had an update on where they fit.
I can provide that for you.
Yep. Try to be cognizant of time here. Project 3, Special Education and English Language Learners. For the special ed, I had an opportunity to go to the CTE conference. And there was a big disconnect between ECAP, IEP, and CTE programs, and how our students in the special ed department understand, and parents how they understand, and counselors how do they put our kids. So I want to see more of that, and what's the access in that conversation. English language learners, and this is huge. Well, first of all, Dr. Davidson is doing the efforts on diversity and inclusion, but I have a research that shows, and nowhere in this did we discuss comprehensive curriculum around culture training and sensitivity. We have a very diverse community, and there's a ton of research that supports when we are using culture knowledge, prior experiences, frameworks of reference, and performance styles of ethnically diverse students to make learning more appropriate, we have better outcomes. And nowhere in any of this presentation do I see that. What's our teacher training, what's our staff training, and what does our administration training look like for culture sensitivity? I did appreciate the logo that D&I is working on, so thank you. Project 4, multi-tiered system support professional learning. Testing. Our students are tested a lot. So I want to know, when we see a benchmark, what's the validity that it aligns up to the Arizona state standard? Because if we have 75% of our students passing the district benchmark, yet 75% of our students cannot pass the AZ merit, there's a disconnect that our benchmark is not valid and aligned to state standards.
So with that, we're taking a look at that this year. We give our benchmarks typically 4 times a year, and we're going through to the end of the year for that 4th time in May so that we can look at that validity. I believe we do have an alignment issue because we need to narrow the focus in what we call priority standards. The standards are so big, and there's so many of them at a variety of grade levels that in fact it's causing us, the system, if they want to test or benchmark, we have, in fact, at second grade, we have a variety, we have almost 29, 28 standards in a quarter for second grade. That's how big they are. So we have to do a better job of identifying priority standards, the big rocks of that guaranteed and viable curriculum, so that we know every second grader in our district is going to get this, and we're going to assess these priority standards. We know we have an alignment issue associated to that, and we need to narrow that focus so that we're guaranteeing that our kids are going to exit and progress through the grade levels with mastery of those most important or priority standards.
So keep in mind the over-testing. I heard during your presentation that with, and one of the programs that we have, we test students or look for assessments once or twice every other week, and then we're doing a benchmark, and then we're doing unit testing. If our tests are not aligned, why are we even giving them? And we really need to remove all the assessments that are not aligned to state standards.
The most valuable in this model that we're moving to, the linchpin of success, is a common formative assessment in that classroom that teachers create. They're short, they're quick. In fact, it's not recommended that there's no more than 4 questions for one learning target. There's no more than 3 learning targets in one common formative assessment. So a student taking a common formative assessment would only have at the most 12 questions. So this is a quick check for understanding to see, did the kid get it? We don't need 50 problems to make a determination if the student learned the learning targets. So we've got some work to do there. Therein lies that narrow focus for professional development that you referenced.
The last 2 things in this space, homework. Our kids get a lot of homework in some areas. I would like some recommendations coming to the board and looking at our homework policy. Sometimes it does more harm than good. And, I just lost my train of thought. Homework, and it will come back to me. Oh, standard-based grading. If everything we do, our assessments, our teaching aligns to standards, why don't our grades align to standard-based grading? Because the behavior is different than the outcome of the standard. Something I want to have more discussion with. And the last, let's see. We heard student, parent feedback. Where's that in the conversation? Upcoming topics, I know Dr. Pinsky came about preschool, student success. That is not in this lineup, so we need to add that somewhere in the mix. Where's our early childhood education and student success? We heard this evening blocks, start times. Add that, what's the impact to student success? Block scheduling. We know attention span of our new students is different as a result of all the social media, all the technology they have. So re-evaluating block scheduling, is it as effective as it is today as it was then? Policies for special ed and discipline. A lot impacts student success. So I look forward to even considering, you mentioned another study session, but a board retreat in the middle of the summer. Give everybody time to refocus. So that pretty much covers a lot of stuff that you've heard from the board members. We look forward to all the data and conversation. Is there anything add? Anything, Mr. Savoy?
Yes, if I could, Mrs. Seha Martinez and board members, if I could just make a quick comment here at the end. First of all, thank you, Dr. Bell, for your presentation this evening. This is the most refreshing conversation that we've had in a long, long time. great organizations confront the brutal facts. And we need to confront the brutal facts. Full alignment with the board on that path. And what I would say to that is I hope that over the next couple of months that we take the time to really narrow the focus, really identify what is the critical elements that we want to focus on that is going to impact student success in our district. If we tried to tackle a whole list, we won't get to where we need to get to. So what are those critical, non-negotiable pieces? Is it in the area of literacy, language arts? How do we support the diverse needs of our diverse students? And we really need to focus that. And I will tell you, it's hard work. But what will be the benefit of that is knowing our team has the support of the board. Because what will happen when you confront hard work is there will be pushback and challenges that we will encounter. And we will need the full support of the board, we'll need the full support of our team to focus on those specific ideals, because great organizations confront those tough, brutal facts. It's uncomfortable having some of this conversation. But I believe that through that effort, we will turn that corner. And you believe that too. But we need your help and support and narrowing that focus and sending a consistent message that it's a hard work for all of us, all of our teachers, all of our support staff, and all of our school building level principals. So thank you for being willing to have this hard conversation for all of us in our community.
And it's not going to happen in a year or 2 years. It's going to take some time. That's why we have a strategic plan. Ms. Underhill.
I'm really sorry. I just had one more question. So my question is, we're working with these leadership teams at each of the schools. Yes. And thank you, Mr. Savoy. I completely agree. I think it is a difficult conversation, but I'm glad we're doing it because we all want to do better. So we have these leadership teams at each of the schools. I guess my question is we're so big that are the teachers that maybe aren't involved in those leadership teams, is the kind of vision of what we're trying to do here being spread down throughout? Because I know, like, when I was a teacher and they'd be like, if they came, and I've heard this already in the hallways, oh, we got to identify some priority standards. And, that's what they're taking away. So I guess I'm just wondering, how are we presenting this so they know where we're headed? We're not just having you do this for, a quick hit, but.
That question. First of all, the learning teams are a subset of a larger leadership team at each school. And so when we come together, we have probably 5-ish to 6. They are tasked with how are you going to bring this back to your school. And so we do a lot of work in helping them plan for that and giving them the information. The schools, in terms of implementing this new approach, are along a different continuum. Some are ahead of others. Today, we met with the leadership team, or principals, assistant principals, and we asked the question, okay, we're all in different places. We've learned a lot this year. What are our tights going to be for next year? In other words, we're beginning to develop the non-negotiables with which we will move forward for all teachers, all schools in our school district. I think that is one example of what Mr. Savoy was talking about. We need to focus and move ourselves forward through that second order change so that we see change in schools across the district with the kind of focus on student learning that we all want for kids and for all kids.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we are almost done. 8.5, report and discussion on local, state, and federal legislative issues and activities. Ms. Myers.
Well, good evening again, President Cehar Martinez, members of the governing board. As of April 5th, 1,289 bills were introduced this 54th legislative session. It appears that ultimately only 498 are still alive, while the other 791 are no longer alive or have been signed or vetoed by the governor. Last week, the appropriations committees finalized their meetings, and budget discussions are now underway without a resolution for the tax conformity issue to align the Arizona tax code to the federal tax code. 3 bills that we've been watching in recent weeks is Senate Bill 1256, which addresses problems with audit services and low bid requirements from last year's legislative session. That did pass last year, and this year it has passed with an emergency clause to do the following. If approved by the governor, the bill will eliminate the requirements that were put into place last legislative session that required districts to change auditing firms every 3 years and put a prohibition on an auditor hired by a school district from receiving consulting fees from that same school district. So that's now with the governor awaiting signature. Also, SB 1256 repeals the requirement from last legislative session that required the State Board of Education to adopt rules requiring that the lowest qualified bidder be awarded on all contracts for materials, services, goods, construction, and construction services as currently stated in Arizona Revised Statute 15213.04. So again, that's made it through the legislature, and is awaiting signature. Senate Bill 1022 has been signed by Governor Ducey, and that is the bill that will reduce the required minimum instructional hours for 7th and 8th grade students. So that has passed and has been signed. Basically, it reduces the instructional time from a current 1,000 hours to 890 hours. And then finally, another bill that we're watching is House Bill 2139, which is the consolidation or unification bill. And that bill has a requirement that every school district in the state must be a unified school district by July of 2024, and that schools must determine the savings from consolidation and use those monies in the classroom. And it requires the county school superintendents to conduct a feasibility study on consolidation for districts in their county. It also appropriates funding for this purpose. So those are 3 bills we've been watching. And then finally, Census 2020. The country is due for another census count, and Arizona is gearing up to start the process. Governor Ducey issued an executive order last week establishing Arizona's 2020 Census Committee. Now, that's important for 2 reasons. A full and accurate count is imperative for Arizona to receive its full representation in Congress, as well as its federal funding for differing programs. So that impacts entities like the Peoria Unified School District. And the census count also affects legislative districts, so we could see a shift in representation within our state government as well. And that concludes this week's report.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. They don't know yet. Thank you so much. Okay, number 9.1, budget, facilities, planning, and construction, all the things that are going on in our district in regards to building. You can find the report online. 9.2, district enrollment report for the month of February of 2019 is also online. 9.3, report on upcoming meetings and events. Ms. Airy.
Good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the board. A couple of quick highlights that I want to bring to your attention. First is Peoria Education Foundation's Visionary Awards Dinner. You heard a little bit, or a lot, actually, about the Peoria Education Foundation tonight. That is their largest fundraiser event, and so certainly the entire governing board is invited. We hope you'll be able to join us for that celebration, and it's really an exciting event. Next is prior to the next governing board meeting, we will have our volunteer appreciation event. It's a reception that will take place at 5 p.m. back in our training rooms, where we invite a volunteer of the year from all of our schools, as well as some district-wide volunteers that we will be recognizing. We would love to have all of our board members join us for that prior to the meeting. Then our top volunteers of the year will come and join us for the recognition portion of our board meeting. So sort of a similar format that we did this evening. So did want to put that on your radar. I hope that you can join us for that beginning portion if you're available to help us to present some of those awards.
Thank you, and I appreciate you, this year's at the district office, so that does make it convenient, so thank you again. There is one more that I would like to add. On April 17th, United Community Action Network, the Peoria Police Department does host that event, and it was brought to me by a constituent, and Miss Airy will be presenting. It's on April 17th, and I believe, is it at 11 a.m.? 11:30. It is midday, but past governing board members have attended and represented the school district. That is midday for me. Unfortunately, I can't not make it that day, but if more than one board member does want to attend, please notify our district so that we can have it posted for a public meeting. But you are definitely, I wanted to highlight Miss Airy will be presenting.
The Pride of Peoria.
That is coming up as well, Mrs. Pingarelli. Pride of Peoria is coming up on May 6th. It looks like we missed that up on the list for you. It was in that lengthy email that I did send you on upcoming events, but it is May 6th. It's a Monday, Arizona Broadway Theater, and we look forward to honoring 38 of our Pride of Peoria recipients, and then, of course, our Rookie of the Year finalists, as well as the Dr. Raymond S. Kellis Leadership Award recipient. So we hope you'll join us for that. And as you will recall, and for Mrs. Underhill, who is new to the board, we do have our board members on stage to help us present those awards.
Okay. That is the last of 9 informational reports. Number 10, other business, board member opportunity to readdress any agenda items. That's a no at 9:31. 10.2, draft agenda for the April 25th. This is up for review already. We've given a timeline for the month of up to June for quarter 2.
Excuse me. I'm not going to be able to make the next board meeting, and I was wondering if we could perhaps move the presentation of special education services to the next meeting, if there's something blocking that or whatever. But I would really like to be here for that, and I'm going to be unable to make the next board meeting.
Okay, so we'll take a look with Mr. Savoy and look at, and the district to see where we can maneuver those things. Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Stone.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. 10.3, request for future governing board agenda items. Ms. Abishan has color-coded and segmented by pillar. Ms. Underhill, is there anything you want to add?
I do not have anything. Thank you.
Ms. Pingarelli?
I would like to take a look at the boundaries for the people who, I don't recall the community.
For the transportation boundaries?
Yes.
Okay. I'll second that.
That's just a report, right?
Do you want a report? Or is that a presentation?
Be a report.
Mr. Savoy?
Sorry.
What is your
Ms. Pangarelli? Yeah, it's a bigger piece as far as we know what the boundaries are right now. We could provide the board some information, though, on what the request is and what that impact looks like and what are potential resolutions that we could look at moving forward.
So you'll do that in a Friday board
We can do
report
that. We can do a
first?
Friday report for you.
Okay.
And then you can let us know the direction you want us to take.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'll second that.
Really?
Will that work?
That's good.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, I know you mentioned the adjusting the school day, meaning at a later start time. Do we already have that on here?
I believe
somewhere?
Another board member did ask for that, start times, high school achievement start time models.
Perfect. Okay. Yep. That said, I do not have an additional item.
Ms. Doan?
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
And I do not as well. There are some things that we received an email, but we're going to head into that space in quarter 2. So I don't believe any other future agenda items. I do need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
At 9:34, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Meeting adjourned.